Imagine transmigrating into a fantasy world as the fiancé of the most powerful woman alive. And she's not just any woman, she is drop-dead gorgeous. Your only job is to keep her happy, stay by her side, and coast through life in luxury. Beautiful women are literally being sent to attend to you. Sounds perfect, right? Well, there's one tiny problem. If anyone finds out he's been faking his identity, he loses his head in something far more precious. Meanwhile, gorgeous women keep throwing themselves at him left and right. Even the Empress herself is serving certified premium content on a daily basis. But before we get into all that, let me set the stage for you. This is the Qianyuan continent, where martial strength is everything that matters. Martial artists climb through 9 ranks, and at the very top, a 9th rank can level entire cities with a single hand. In the eastern state stands the martial empire, so powerful that nobody dares to provoke it, because its ruler is the youngest 9th rank martial artist in all of history, Martial Empress Wu Xin. However, this all-powerful Empress has one unexpected weakness, and that weakness happens to be our protagonist, who is literally her fiancé, giving her a leg massage on the throne. And can we just acknowledge how absolutely breathtaking this woman is? This Manhwa knew exactly what it was doing with this character design. But naturally, the court officials are losing their minds watching this happen on the imperial throne. This is Jia Reni, a martial empire official, and he is demanding that the Empress impeach Wenming for indecency in court. And it's not just him. Every single official in the room is calling for the engagement to be annulled and his noble title stripped away. And does our protagonist care? Not even slightly. He calls them a bunch of noisy old fogies. This right here is Wenming, prince consort of the martial empire, and he has exactly zero interest in working hard ever again. See, Wenming wasn't always a prince consort. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary office worker back on Earth. Fresh out of school, he fell for his boss's empty promises and worked himself to the bone doing overtime at some corporate sweatshop. Until one day, he literally dropped dead right in front of his computer. Just straight up died from overwork. But then he got reborn in this new world as the son of the Northern Marquis, one of the most powerful military families in the empire. He figured being born into wealth meant he could finally relax forever. But his father was assigned to guard the northern frontier and rode off to war. And the old man took the mother, the servants, and every last coin with him, leaving Wenming completely alone with nothing. But just when all seemed lost, he discovered one thing his father did leave behind: an imperial marriage contract with the late emperor. And his fiancée listed in that contract, none other than the future martial empress herself, Wu Xin. From that moment on, our boy made Wu Xin's entire life his priority. Whatever she liked, he liked. Whatever she wanted, he wanted too. His entire life strategy became one thing and one thing only: cling to the martial empress and never let go. And he means that literally. By hugging her thigh tightly, he could slack off without worry and avoid the fate of his past life. Yu Xin tells him he does not need to use his face to massage her and orders him to get up immediately. She reminds him that she is the emperor now and he needs to stop treating her like they are still children playing around. But internally, he is thinking that teenage girls are way too much trouble, and if he did not need to mooch off her, he would not even bother. Meanwhile, the officials are still going at it, accusing Wenming of disrespecting the throne by touching the Empress so casually. Wenming fires back, saying he was just helping his dear wife relieve muscle tension, and that a healthy Empress means a stable empire. The audacity of this man. Wu Xin is sitting there watching this back and forth unfold, and you can see the patience draining from her face in real time. And then the Empress finally snaps and screams for everyone to be quiet. She unleashes her 9th rank power, and the entire courtroom gets hit with a shockwave that sends officials flying. The officials are getting ragdolled through the air, and honestly, they kind of deserve it for all that noise. She tells them she summoned this court to discuss state affairs, not to watch them bicker like children in a schoolyard. And just like that, every single one of those proud officials is sweating bullets and stammering apologies. They all hit the floor begging for forgiveness. Not a single one dares to say another word against her. And Wenming? This man has the nerve to gloat, telling them his dear wife has had enough of their bureaucratic garbage. The officials are visibly seething, but nobody dares to challenge him while the Empress is right there backing him up. Wenming even threatens that once they get married in a year, he will personally make every last one of these old fossils kneel and beg for mercy. But then the Empress turns on him too, and suddenly our boy does not look so confident anymore. She tells him they are only engaged, and until the wedding actually happens, he needs to stop calling her his wife so casually. Our boy immediately agrees. Wu Xin lets out a deep sigh, clearly exhausted from dealing with both the officials and her overly clingy fiancé. She moves on to official business, but Wenming is already plotting internally, thinking that once they are married, he will show her his family's house rules. Wu Xin catches him mumbling and asks what he is saying, so he smoothly covers it up by offering her yet another massage. Classic Wenming. She declines and refocuses the court on something actually important: an urgent report from the northern frontier. The officials report that scout intelligence confirms the barbarian tribes are mobilizing massive forces near the border. They warn that the barbarians likely plan to invade while Wu Xin's reign is still freshly established. The Empress listens in silence, but Wenming steps forward with zero hesitation, telling the Empress she has absolutely nothing to worry about. He proudly declares that his old man is invincible, and those barbarians would never dare cross into their territory. The confidence is almost admirable, and even Wu Xin privately admits that while Wenming is an insufferable fool, his father, the Northern Marquis, truly is an unparalleled warrior. And that is when an urgent report suddenly bursts into the court, catching everyone completely off guard. Someone blows past the officials at full speed, and the tension in the room shifts immediately. The messenger announces an urgent dispatch from the northern frontier, and suddenly the room goes dead silent. This is Jueyu, Grand Marshal of the Marcel Empire, and she is holding a scroll that is about to ruin absolutely everything. Wenming immediately starts celebrating, convinced this must be news of his father crushing the barbarian invasion. He is laughing and calling it quick work. He even starts mocking the officials, telling them this is what real contributions to the empire look like, and that they should take notes. He demands the report be read aloud so every detail of his father's heroics can echo through the entire court. Now here is where this all goes horribly wrong. Jueyu begins reading. At dawn, 200,000 barbarian troops invaded. At noon, Grand Marshal Wen Tian led forces to intercept them. Then she pauses. By nightfall, as the battle raged on, something happened that nobody in this room saw coming. Grand Marshal Wen Tian defected to the barbarians, and the smile on Wen Ming's face, it has not moved a single inch. His brain has completely stopped working. The moment those words register, every cell in Wen Ming's body enters pure survival mode because he knows exactly what this means for him. Before he can even process it, someone grabs him by the wrist with zero hesitation. Grand Marshal Zhuai locks him down, and Wen Ming screams in absolute panic, because 5 seconds ago he was the prince consort and now he is the son of a traitor. The court immediately asks the Empress how they should deal with the traitor's son, while Wen Ming screams that his father must have been framed. The officials in Zhuyu are looming over him, and nobody is buying his excuses for even a second. Jia Reni seizes the moment and declares that he always suspected the Northern Marquis of having treacherous ambitions, and that Wen Ming must be a barbarian spy. The rest of the officials pile on like vultures, some calling for beheading, others demanding slow execution. These guys are really enjoying this. And while all of this is happening, Wu Xing stands perfectly still, her expression hidden behind her hair as the calls for his death echo around her. Wen Ming is losing it, screaming about what kind of father betrays his own son like this. And honestly, he has a fair point about that one. After all his effort to win Wu Xin over, after years of playing the perfect fiancé, his own father just stabbed him in the back from 1,000 miles away. But our boy refuses to go down without a fight. He begs Wu Xin on the strength of their childhood friendship to give him one chance to uncover the truth. And for the first time in this entire scene, something shifts in Wu Xin's expression as she hears him plead for mercy. Memories of their childhood together flash through her mind. All those years of games and laughter and his ridiculous devotion to staying by her side. Wu Xin declares that she will not kill him, and Wen Ming's face lights up with pure disbelief and relief. The officials immediately erupt in protest, begging the Empress not to be swayed by his lies and demanding she execute him on the spot. Wu Xin shuts them all down with a single word, and every mouth in the room closes instantly. She announces that he will be spared, but he will not go unpunished. And the way she says it does not sound comforting at all. Wen Ming immediately accepts whatever punishment she decides, internally celebrating that all his years of fawning over her are finally paying off. As long as he stays alive, there is still hope. Wu Xin calmly orders Jueyu to throw him in the dungeons, and the Grand Marshal nods without hesitation. But Wu Xin is not finished. Her eyes narrow, and she adds 2 words that are about to destroy this man's entire existence. Have the imperial physician castrate him and make him a eunuch in the palace. And that right there is the sound of every plan Wen Ming ever had shattering into a million pieces. Meanwhile, back at Wu Xin's private residence, the Hall of Blessings and Tranquility, and the Empress herself is unwinding in a petal bath, because even world rulers need self-care after a day like that. The artists really said they were going to draw every single detail of this scene, and honestly the audience is being well fed right now. But behind those gorgeous pink eyes, something heavy is clearly weighing on her mind. She is replaying the whole situation in her head, wondering why the Northern Marquis would suddenly rebel when his own son is a hostage in the capital. She remembers how genuinely panicked Wen Ming looked, and she is thinking that reaction did not seem rehearsed at all. But before she can spiral any deeper, someone sneaks up behind her and asks who is making the Empress so gloomy. And whoever this newcomer is, she has arrived looking absolutely ridiculous levels of stacked. This Manhwa is not subtle. She teases Wu Xin by asking if maybe she just missed her too much, and Wu Xin immediately recognizes her as Cici. Wu Xin is visibly flustered and commenting on how outstanding the sensation is, and I think this scene is operating on multiple levels right now. She is blushing harder than she ever did around Wen Ming, and this girl has known her for approximately 5 seconds of screen time. Wu Xin scolds her for still having that terrible groping habit after all these years, and Cici just laughs it off, saying she cannot resist Wu Xin's figure. But then Wu Xin's expression shifts slightly, and she mutters something about speaking of figures. She turns the conversation right back around, telling Cici that the changes in her body over the years are way more extreme. Cici asks what she just said, and Wu Xin immediately backtracks with a quick nothing, because even the Empress gets flustered sometimes. After they get dressed, Woo-sin asks Cece why she is here when she should still be training in the mountains. And can we just appreciate Woo-sin in this outfit? Certified breathtaking as always. Cece explains that her master called her too reckless and wanted to keep her locked up for a few more years, and Woo-sin agrees that the master was not wrong about that. But her master heard about Woo-sin ascending the throne and sent Cece down from the mountain specifically to help her govern the empire. Cece gets all serious and declares that the path of an emperor is hard, so Woo-sin should always consult with her loyal minister whenever she has worries. Then she swears on the name of the 8 Trigram sect to help Woo-sin overcome every obstacle, and Woo-sin is genuinely moved by this. Woo-sin pauses for a moment, then admits there is actually something she needs to talk about. Cece immediately lights up like a kid on Christmas, asking if it is court politics or some prince plotting a rebellion, and Woo-sin is internally questioning where all that composure from 2 seconds ago went. Woo-sin starts with the classic line, saying she has a friend who is troubled about something, and we all know exactly where this is heading. She explains that this friend once received great kindness from a senior and agreed to a marriage pact between their children. And for over a decade, the childhood sweetheart treated this friend incredibly well, always considerate, always spoiling her rotten. But recently, this friend learned that the senior who showed her all that kindness inexplicably defected to the enemy. Now with the wedding approaching, this friend does not know if her fiancé truly loves her, or if one day he will betray her just like his father did. Cece stops her right there and holds up a hand, because she has clearly already connected the dots. She squints and asks if maybe this friend is actually Woo-sin herself, and the Empress can barely hold it together. Cece bursts out laughing, unable to believe the Empress is agonizing over something this simple. Woo-sin just asks her what she would suggest. Cece channels her master's wisdom, saying that even if a man can control his words, his body will always give him away. So her brilliant plan is to have someone trustworthy secretly try to seduce him, just to see if he has a wandering heart. A loyalty test, if you will. Woo-sin goes completely silent as the gears in her head start turning at dangerous speed. Then she announces with absolute certainty that she has made her decision, and Cece has no idea what is coming. Woo-sin declares that Cece herself will be the one to seduce her fiancé, and the look on this girl's face is absolutely priceless. Cece's entire brain just short-circuited in real time, and honestly the girl walked right into this one with her own suggestion. Now let us cut to where our boy Wen-ming is currently being held, because while the girls were having their spa day, things got very real very fast. And the sign on the door literally reads castration chamber, so any hope Wen-ming had left should be evaporating right about now. Someone inside is carefully sharpening a blade, and every spark off that whetstone is another year of therapy. The imperial physician asks if the young Marquis is ready, and Wen-ming, tied to a pillar, screams that he is absolutely not ready in any capacity. He screams that he has been falsely accused, insisting that Woo-sin only said the castration thing to shut the ministers up and she obviously did not mean it. The physician responds by shoving a cloth right into his mouth and telling him to be quiet. Bedside manner of the century. He explains that everyone knows Wen-ming's father is a traitor, and if he does not remove the little head, then his own big head is going to roll. The physician tries to comfort him by saying it is just one quick slice, while Wen-ming internally panics about becoming the first castrated transmigrator in recorded history. And right when all hope seems lost, somebody kicks the door clean off its hinges in the most dramatic rescue entrance imaginable. Tao Cece lands in the room holding an imperial decree and announces that the castration has been officially reassigned. And yes, the character design is going absolutely insane with this entrance. Wen-ming immediately starts crying tears of joy, convinced that Woo-sin would never truly abandon him. Our boy really thought he was saved. The physician reads the decree and confirms it is legitimate, but the contents are apparently not what anyone expected, because the decree says the castration will now be personally carried out by Tao Cece herself, and she is holding a blade the size of a small car. Wen-ming immediately changes his mind and begs for the uncle to do it instead, but the physician is already walking out the door. Cece slams that massive blade into the ground right next to him, and Wen-ming's soul is visibly leaving his body. He starts screaming about whether Woo-sin was really sparing him, because that blade looks less like a surgical tool and more like a weapon of war. Cece tells him he should feel grateful, because Woo-sin personally chose the most clever and adorable person in the universe to be his companion in suffering. But our boy Wen-ming stands his ground and declares that his heart belongs to Xiaoxin alone, refusing any companion in anything. Cece has heard enough talking and moves in for the procedure, and Wen-ming is screaming for his life with every fiber of his being. But then Cece suddenly freezes, and her expression shifts to pure confusion. She is staring at something and stammering, which is definitely not the energy you want from the person about to perform your castration. She genuinely asks how she is supposed to cut this and whether she needs to take the whole thing off. Wen-ming screams that if she does not even know, then why on earth is she here? And then she actually does it. There is blood. There is a blade. And Wen-ming can only manage a single quiet, uh-oh. Blood is spraying everywhere, and both of them are just staring at each other like neither one expected this to actually happen. Meanwhile, the physician is already outside proudly announcing that the Great Wu dynasty now has one more eunuch. Cece has blood splattered all over her face and she is screaming for someone to come help stop the bleeding immediately. Then she nervously admits that she just remembered something pretty important that she forgot to mention beforehand. She faints at the sight of blood. The girl who just performed a castration faints at the sight of blood, and now she is swinging that giant blade around while collapsing. Wenming unleashes a scream that could probably be heard across the entire capital, and honestly this might be the worst day in transmigration history. He begs her to stop the bleeding before she passes out, and the entire room looks like a crime scene with both of them collapsed on the floor. What an absolutely unhinged way to end this episode. Now we cut over to the steward hall where our boy Wenming is dealing with the aftermath of the worst day of his life. He is absolutely furious, demanding to know where that crazy palace maid came from, because she was way too ruthless with the blade. But here is the plot twist of the century. That fool Cece fainted from the blood and never realized the cut only landed on his thigh, which means our boy is still fully intact down there. But if anyone finds out this secret, both his big head and his little head are gone permanently. And before he can even process this miracle, he hears footsteps approaching his door. It is Eunuch Hai, and he has brought someone he calls an expert in eunuchs to check on him. Cece immediately clarifies she would not call herself an expert. The Grand Chamberlain Eunuch Hai humbly describes himself as just someone with a bit more experience in that department. Truly a man dedicated to his craft. Cece looks over and finds Wenming completely buried under the blankets, squirming around like his life depends on staying hidden. Eunuch Hai nods knowingly and says the boy is obviously holding back tears so they will not see him cry, and then adds that he completely understands the feeling. Wenming's internal response to that sympathetic remark can be summarized as, "You understand nothing, old man." He is thinking if he were not terrified of blowing his cover right now, he would have already punched this old eunuch at least twice. Cece, ever the compassionate soul, tells him it is just a couple ounces of flesh and asks if they can still be good sisters, and then she actually reaches over and pokes him near the wound to make her point, which sends Wenming recoiling like he just touched a live wire. Our boy completely loses it, screaming at a pitch that could crack glass, while Cece watches like she genuinely has no idea what the problem is. She has the audacity to ask if becoming a eunuch is really that painful, and Wenming can only whimper that it hurts more than she could possibly imagine. Cece then casually turns to Eunuch Hai and asks how long his own recovery took, like they are comparing workout regimens at the gym. Eunuch Hai joyfully declares the inner palace has gained another outstanding comrade, while Wenming internally swears that if his father's rebellion succeeds, every single one of them is getting executed. Eunuch Hai excuses himself and leaves Cece in charge, while Wenming silently vows to make this crazy woman pay for absolutely everything she has put him through. But now that they are alone, he looks up and realizes this girl is standing directly over him with no intention of leaving. So he immediately cranks the charm to maximum, calling her the most intelligent, adorable, and beautiful young lady in existence, and then politely asks if she could just go away now. Cece is not going anywhere. She announces that Her Majesty personally assigned her as his companion in suffering, responsible for his entire daily life until full recovery, and the character design is feeding us generously in this shot because good lord, when Ming puts it together instantly. Wu Xin is still suspicious of him, and this gorgeous hazard to his health was clearly sent here as a spy. But before he can scheme any further, his stomach betrays him with the loudest growl in the entire imperial palace. Cece cheerfully mentions she brought food, and Wenming grudgingly admits to himself that at least this lunatic has some tiny shred of a conscience. She tells him to open wide, and the look in his eye already says he knows he is about to regret this, because she does not hand him the food. She rockets an entire steamed bun directly into his face like a fastball pitch. She keeps stuffing more buns into his mouth, telling him to eat faster so he recovers sooner, while our boy gags and struggles to survive each bite. At this point, Wenming is fully convinced this woman is not here to nurse him back to health. She is here to finish the job through suffocation. And just like that, Wenming's soul has visibly departed his physical form. Cece is genuinely confused how he passed out after only a couple of bites. She shrugs it off and skips away, humming about what a natural caretaker she is, while our protagonist lies unconscious with a bun still wedged in his mouth. He jolts awake, choking, and launches buns out of his mouth in every direction like a broken cannon. Catching his breath, he arrives at a very reasonable conclusion. This palace is no place for a man to survive, and if this keeps up, he is definitely dying here. But then he spots a wooden staff leaning against the wall, and a plan starts forming. His only guard is one girl who looks like she could not swat a fly. If he can deal with her, he has a clear shot at escaping this palace for good. So our boy puts his plan into motion out in the steward hall outer courtyard. Step 1. Play nice, help with the cleaning, and keep the wooden staff close as a weapon. Cece points out a massive rock formation that is blocking their cleaning path, and Wenming sees his chance to gauge how much force he needs. He smashes the rock to pieces, and Cece just casually comments about how filthy it was underneath. Zero reaction to a supposedly castrated man demolishing a boulder, but something is bothering him. He noticed earlier that she moved that same rock like it weighed nothing at all. He tells Cece he needs to use the restroom, which is obviously just the excuse he needs to get away from her. But Cece asks why he needs an entire wooden staff just to use the bathroom, and for one horrifying second, he improvises that he was just castrated and cannot walk without support, which Cece buys without a single question. Clutch performance from our boy under pressure. As he walks away, he cannot stop thinking about how deceiving her appearance is. She looks delicate but is insanely strong, and the weapons in this world make absolutely zero sense. Cece watches him shuffle off toward the latrines, holding her broom and not moving an inch. Something about her expression says she is not as oblivious as she lets on. And that is when she notices someone lurking in the bushes behind her. It is Wu Xin herself, hiding like a jealous ex running surveillance from the shrubbery. Now here is the massive reveal. Wu Xin is furious because she only told Cece to scare Wen Ming into giving up information, not to actually castrate him. Cece's defense is that it looked ugly and she slipped. Cece pivots and points out that now that he is technically a eunuch, the whole investigation dynamic has fundamentally changed. Wu Xin looks genuinely troubled and asks what the point of testing his loyalty even is anymore if the damage is already done. Cece immediately zeroes in on the emotional energy and asks if Wu Xin actually has feelings for the guy. Wu Xin denies it so fast she practically trips over her own words. Cece reasons that since he is a eunuch now, he should have lost all ambition, meaning there is no way to test his rebellion ties. Wu Xin pauses, then claims that was exactly what she was thinking. Sure it was, Your Majesty, but Cece already has a brand new scheme ready. She tells Wu Xin to rest easy, because she has devised the perfect way to confirm whether Wen Ming harbors treacherous intent. Her keen observation is that the palace bathroom walls are ridiculously low. If Wen Ming has any rebellious thoughts, he will absolutely use the restroom trip as cover to climb over and escape. So she has already lined the outside of the wall with an absolute minefield of blades, spears, and throwing stars, and Wen Ming is over there peeking through the window thinking the coast is completely clear. He takes the bait instantly, grabbing the wall and pulling himself up with zero hesitation, thinking he can clear it easily. He grins like the final villain of a revenge arc and monologues about how once he finds his father, he is personally taking that throne from Wu Xin. Meanwhile, Cece is already celebrating, saying once they catch and torture him, a confession is guaranteed. Wu Xin weakly protests that might be going a bit too far. And right on cue, a blood-curdling scream echoes from behind the wall where those traps are set up. Cece is ecstatic, declaring he must have triggered her trap while trying to escape. She rushes off to catch him in the act like she just pulled off the play of the century. But Wu Xin is not celebrating. She quietly murmurs his name and asks if he was really lying to her this entire time. And honestly, that expression is genuinely heartbreaking. Another scream pierces the night sky as we cut away to a completely different part of the capital. Eunuch Hai is over here giving orders to his men, telling them to stay sharp and pretend to be deaf to anything they should not be hearing. A messenger bird suddenly sweeps across the courtyard carrying something that clearly was not meant for innocent eyes. Eunuch Hai intercepts it with a perfectly aimed throw, knocking the message loose from the bird's leg mid-flight. He catches the fallen message, and the goofy old eunuch persona vanishes completely. This is a man who knows exactly what he is hunting for. He unfolds the letter, and whatever is written inside changes his entire demeanor. He mutters that it is true after all, and the weight behind those 3 words suggests this is something absolutely massive. The thing he has been searching for is in the hands of the Wen family brat, and judging by the flames now gathering in his palm, Eunuch Hai is far from the harmless old man everyone assumed he was. Cece goes absolutely sprinting toward the bathroom area, cackling that she has finally caught him in the act. She launches a full-power attack, screaming at him not to even think about running. But when she gets there, all she finds is Wen Ming sitting on the ground absolutely gushing blood from his lower half. And Cece immediately collapses because apparently the one weakness of this deranged genius is the sight of blood. Wen Ming seizes the moment and goes on the offensive, yelling at both of them, asking if they are perverts who came to watch a eunuch use the bathroom. He doubles down with the performance of a lifetime, saying they castrated him and now they want to humiliate him too. Then this absolute madman stands up and starts showing everything, screaming at them to look at how pitiful the former prince consort has become. He is fully unhinged right now, demanding they burn this disgraceful image into their minds. And Wu Xin, who is now covered in his blood from this entire spectacle, has had exactly enough of this. She absolutely demolishes him, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding while cratering him into the pavement. Our boy gets launched like a rag doll and embeds himself directly into the stone wall. Wu Xing grabs the unconscious blood-soaked Cece and retreats, stammering out an apology while Wen Ming is crumpled in a crater behind them. And the second they are gone, Wen Ming lets out the smegest grin this series has ever produced. He mutters that he finally fooled them, lying in a crater of his own making with fake blood still selling the performance. Meanwhile, Wu Xin is absolutely manhandling Cece's face, furious that her brilliant trap plan turned into a total embarrassment in front of Wen Ming. Cece tries to calm things down by pointing out that he is just a lowly eunuch now and would never dare spread word of the Empress getting embarrassed. But that just makes Wu Xing even angrier because nobody told Cece to actually castrate him in the first place, and Cece finally admits she messed up. Wu Xin's anger shifts to genuine concern, saying she never expected his injuries to be this severe if he is bleeding that much just from using the restroom. So she gives Cece a new order: no more tricks, no more schemes, just take care of Wenming properly and make sure he actually recovers. Wuxin takes her leave, reminding Cece one last time to be good to him, and Cece quietly accepts the assignment. And as she walks away, Wuxin lets her guard down for just a moment, whispering that she is thankful he did not truly betray her. But Wenming is not feeling the romance at all, because these two are now shadowing his every move, even to the bathroom. He curses his luck because his wound reopened when he tried climbing the wall earlier, and now he is stuck in this palace suffering instead of being free. And Cece is not buying his innocent act for a single second, standing watch with her guard fully up. She tells herself that she is not as easy to deceive as Wuxin, and she will personally expose whatever he is really hiding. Our boy meanwhile has collapsed face first onto his sleeping mat, completely drained from being tormented by that woman all day. But even flat on the floor, his brain is still scheming. He pulls out a spoon and grins, saying the latrine was only one escape route, and he is not putting all his eggs in one basket. He has watched enough prison movies in his past life to know that the sewage system is his golden ticket out of this palace. But right in the middle of his grand escape planning, Cece barges in calling for him, and he nearly has a heart attack trying to hide the spoon. She asks what he was doing sneaking around, and he immediately switches to innocent mode, claiming he was just resting because of all the blood he lost earlier. Cece narrows her eyes and says she can tell at a glance that he is hiding something, because this self-proclaimed genius is not that easy to fool. And then she drops the real bomb, hauling a massive bundle of her belongings into his room like she owns the place. She announces that Her Majesty ordered her to handle all his daily needs, so naturally she is moving in, and then she starts undressing right in front of him. And the manhwa is giving us a very generous angle of exactly why Wenming is losing his composure right now. She taunts him, saying even if she strips completely, what could a helpless little eunuch possibly do about it? And Wenming is sweating through every layer he has on. But here is the twist. Cece is not just being reckless, she is running an actual intelligence operation. She learned that drowsy men spill secrets the easiest. When Ming covers his face, muttering that even if he is technically a eunuch, this is still wildly inappropriate, and his willpower is being stress-tested beyond its limits. And then Cece goes for his pants, and Wen Ming's soul practically leaves his body as he screams, asking what she is doing. She tilts her head innocently and says she is obviously just applying his wound medicine. The audacity of this woman is genuinely breathtaking, and frankly so is everything else about this shot. Wen Ming is in full emergency mode, screaming that he absolutely does not need her help and can handle this himself. But Cece is not having it, pinning him down, saying she does not want to get punished by the Empress, and he is yelling about basic boundaries between men and women. And his brain is short-circuiting because he is simultaneously thinking about how insane this woman is, and also why she has to have such an unreasonably incredible figure. And that is when the real crisis hits, because he realizes she does not even need to pull his pants down to discover his secret. His body is about to betray him all on its own. She pins him harder, telling him to quit squirming, and he is thinking that her strength alone might kill him before the exposure even gets the chance. Then she pauses with those big pink eyes and asks what exactly he is trying so hard to hide down there. When Ming's survival instincts are screaming that if he wants to keep his cover intact, he has absolutely no choice but to use his last resort. So he does the only move left in his playbook and deliberately sprays blood all over her face from his reopened wound. The classic distraction technique returns. Cece is back to freaking out about blood. Wen Ming is barely holding it together, and some random palace worker is standing there deeply confused about what he just witnessed. So after all of that, Cece has commandeered his entire bed and is sleeping like a starfish while our boy is relegated to the cold floor. He grips his escape spoon and resolves that at this rate he will definitely get exposed. So the sewer tunnel plan needs to happen immediately. But right as he is about to start digging, he feels something grab the back of his neck. Cece has rolled off the bed and latched onto him in her sleep, mumbling for him to just confess already. This woman is interrogating him while unconscious. He cannot believe she is running a full investigation in her dreams, and he is deeply concerned about whatever sleeping position got her all the way over here. Cece starts reaching for him in her sleep, mumbling that she is going to catch him right now, and Wen Ming is genuinely terrified of a sleeping person. She grabs him, yelling that she found his weakness, and the level of precision this girl has while fully asleep is honestly terrifying. And she grabs exactly the one thing that would end his entire charade. The eunuch disguise is under direct physical threat right now, and the mushroom metaphor is doing heavy lifting. His scream echoes across the entire palace as he begs the heavens for someone to just put him out of his misery already. Thankfully, she eventually rolls away in her sleep, and he lies there thinking that if she had held on until morning, his secret would have been completely finished. He whispers that he truly is a man of 9 lives, but then he notices a shadow looming over him with glowing eyes in the darkness. When Ming's blood runs cold as he looks up and realizes she might not have been asleep at all this entire time. She makes her move before he can even react, grabbing hold of exactly what she should not be grabbing. Cece leans over him with that unhinged smile, asking what exactly he has been hiding down there, and our boy has officially run out of tricks, blood, and excuses. So we pick right back up with Cece on top of him, asking what exactly he is hiding down there. and she tilts her head with that dangerously innocent smile and asks what this hard thing is that she found. Wenming is having a full existential crisis, thinking both his heads are about to get chopped off, and Cece's eyes are practically sparkling as she demands to see what he is hiding. But then she pulls out the object in question, and it is literally just his escape spoon. She asks why he is carrying a spoon, and he panics out the excuse that he got hungry and was looking for food. Cece smacks him and says he is boring, clearly disappointed it was not the scandal she was hoping for. And Wenming is clutching that spoon like a holy relic, thanking the heavens he hid his real secret in time. Cece switches gears completely, telling him the Empress ordered her to feed him, so he better get up for breakfast. But Wenming is very concerned about what she means by breakfast, because with this woman you never really know. She presents a pile of big fluffy steamed buns, and the framing of this shot is doing absolutely criminal amounts of double duty right now. Wenming's reaction tells us everything we need to know about what just registered in his brain. His scream to stay away from him echoes across the entire palace grounds for the second morning in a row. Fast forward 7 days, and somehow our boy has survived an entire week of cohabitation with this menace. The head eunuch, Eunuch Hai, shows up and announces that Wenming has recovered enough to start learning how to serve. And Wenming is sitting there eating with Cece when the eunuch walks in. And honestly, our boy looks like he has seen better decades. Cece reports that he has been well taken care of, but the man himself looks like his soul has been slowly extracted over 7 consecutive days. Even the eunuch can tell this man is not fine and offers to give him a few more recovery days. But Wenming latches onto his arm like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. He begs the eunuch to just take him anywhere. He does not care where, as long as it is away from that woman. So Eunuch Hai hauls him away while Cece watches, and she tells the eunuch to take good care of her little project. But privately, Cece is thinking that 7 days without a single slip-up makes her wonder if he really has nothing to do with the Northern Marquis rebellion. Meanwhile, Wenming is practically skipping alongside the eunuch, saying he will do anything as long as that woman is not involved. The eunuch tells him not to worry, that as a former imperial son-in-law he will find Wenming a comfortable position. But Wenming is not stupid. He is already thinking this old eunuch's attitude shifted way too fast and there has to be a catch. The eunuch leads him to the imperial kitchen and things are about to get interesting. He tells Wenming his job will be tasting the imperial food, and our boy is literally drooling at the spread of royal cuisine in front of him. But there is one rule. He can only take a single bite from each dish, or the emperor will not be pleased. Wenming agrees to 1 bite per dish and then proceeds to take bites so massive that the eunuch nearly has a stroke watching him. The eunuch lets it slide because Wenming is still useful to him, but internally he is contemplating violence. And then out of nowhere, Wenming drops to his knees right in front of the eunuch. He tells the eunuch that since coming to the palace, he has been the only person to show him genuine kindness. And then he hits him with the Godfather request, asking if the eunuch would accept him as his sworn son. The eunuch says that is ridiculous since the Northern Marquis is still alive. But Wenming fires back that his traitor father is not worthy of the title. And the eunuch is genuinely moved by this, calling him a noble and righteous child with tears forming in his eyes. They end up in a full tearful embrace, declaring their new father-son bond. And this is the most manipulative hug in palace history. Because here's the thing. Wenming is already plotting to use this eunuch as a stepping stone until he finds his real father. And the eunuch is thinking the exact same thing in reverse, planning to dispose of Wenming the second he gets what he wants. Wenming immediately starts pushing his luck, suggesting they cook extra dishes for the emperor so he can taste test those too. The eunuch says palace food is not filling enough and suggests they go somewhere else, while privately wondering if this kid has a bottomless pit for a stomach. Wenming asks if skipping work on his first day is okay, but the eunuch waves it off, saying godsons do not worry about such things. But the eunuch has ulterior motives, thinking this is the perfect chance to test whether Wenming has a certain something on him. So imagine Wenming's face when they arrive at their destination and it is a straight-up brothel with women calling out from the balcony. Wenming points out that 2 eunuchs walking into a brothel is perhaps the most suspicious outing in imperial history, but the old man just says nobody has to know. And just like that, they are being escorted inside, with the staff promising their finest entertainment. The eunuch tells him to have fun and that he is covering all the costs, and Wenming's face is the definition of a man who did not prepare for this scenario. But here is the real play. The eunuch is paying the madam to send in her most beautiful courtesan and report every single thing, and now his whole scheme clicks into place. He believes the Northern Marquis had a legendary technique that regenerates flesh and bone, and if Wenming inherited it, 7 days would be enough to regrow what was supposedly cut off. So the trap is set, and a courtesan is already inviting our boy into a private room. Wenming sits down, but he is not fooled for a second, already piecing together that this old eunuch deliberately lured him here for a reason. And just when you thought it could not get more complicated, Cece has followed them here, and she is absolutely convinced that eunuch is up to something shady. So the madam is selling Wenming on this courtesan from the western regions, claiming even nobility can barely get an audience with her. But Wenming is not buying it for a second, already thinking this whole setup reeks of Eunuch Hai testing whether he is really a eunuch. So he tries the most Wenming move possible and asks if they can just skip the curtain and bring him more food instead. The madam laughs and tells him once he sees her, he might want to feast on her instead, and Wenming's alarm bells are going off. He is now fully convinced the madam is working with Eunuch Hai, and that there are eyes on him from every hidden corner of this place. And before he can plan his next move, someone announces that Lady Ruyan has arrived. A delicate foot steps through the doorway, and the Manhwa is already doing that slow reveal thing. Wenming turns to look and immediately gets hit with an exclamation mark. But wait, this is not Ruyan. It is her attendant, a girl from the western regions, and Wenming is already freaking out at how exotic she looks. And this girl takes one look at our boy and immediately writes him off as a clueless country bumpkin. Wenming is confused, pointing at himself like, wait, me? And then a red carpet starts unrolling across the floor, and both of them just stand there watching this happen. Because apparently Lady Ruyan does not just walk into a room, she gets a full red carpet entrance like she is arriving at a premiere. First we get the dainty ankles with a little bell that catches the light, and the camera is working overtime here. Then the camera pans up and listen, the artist knew exactly what they were doing with this frame. Absolutely zero subtlety. And there she is, Lu Ruyan, courtesan of Gyeonggwa Pavilion, and she is genuinely breathtaking. Golden hair, blue eyes, and an outfit that should be classified as a weapon. And our boy's brain has completely stopped functioning. He manages to stammer out a no problem, but his face is telling a very different story. But he snaps himself out of it, cursing Eunuch Hai for thinking a foreign beauty would be enough to break his cover. And then Ruyan reaches out and touches his face, and every thought he just had evaporates instantly. She leans in close and asks why his face is so red and sweaty, wondering if maybe it is just the heat. And the way they drew this woman surrounded by flower petals, this is certified premium content right here. The artists are feeding us well. Wenming is internally screaming that she is way too close, and honestly his willpower stats are getting absolutely shredded right now. He is trying to chant see no evil at himself while Ruyan laughs and says his reaction is quite amusing. She offers to sit him down and feed him some fruit to quench his thirst, and every word out of her mouth is dripping with charm. Meanwhile outside, the madam and her attendant are fully confident that no man can keep secrets from Ruyan, especially one who looks like an inexperienced virgin. But then something catches their attention and both of them freeze in absolute shock. The madam's eyes go wide and she stammers like she has just seen someone she recognizes. Back inside, Ruyan delicately plucks a grape, and even the way she picks fruit looks seductive. She tells Wenming to open his mouth so she can feed him, and the framing of this panel is absolutely doing the most. Our boy is sweating bullets trying to say he can eat by himself, internally screaming that he must resist temptation at all costs. He manages to flick the grape away from his face, and Ruyan's surprised reaction suggests she is not used to being rejected. But she recovers immediately, pressing the grape to her own lips and asking if maybe he would prefer she feed him another way instead. And Wenming is losing his entire mind, calling her a damn enchantress and wondering who on earth could possibly resist this. But here is the twist. Behind that sweet smile, Ruyan is calculating everything. She thinks this little eunuch is easy prey and plans to keep him hooked for her own agenda. And just when the tension could not get any thicker, someone outside yells that a young master Jia is coming, and both of them look alarmed. This guy is barging and screaming for everyone to get out of his way, and the madam looks absolutely terrified. And this is Jia Zhengdao, son of Prime Minister Jia Reni, and he is the exact type of spoiled rich kid. Wenming immediately recognizes the name and his blood runs cold, because this is exactly the worst person to run into right now. Because if Jia catches him in a brothel and reports it back to the princess, he is looking at death by slow slicing at minimum. So he makes a split-second decision and tells himself he has no choice but to take a massive gamble right now. Meanwhile, Jia is out here loudly announcing that he came to celebrate because he heard Wenming got castrated, and yes, he really said that out loud. He demands the top courtesan accompany him for drinks because apparently his status requires nothing less, and the madam can barely get a word out. He starts tossing bags of silver around like confetti, telling them a little extra is nothing to the Prime Minister's son. And who do we see lurking behind a door watching all of this unfold? Eunuch Hai, of course, because this man is always somewhere nearby, and he is absolutely furious because this spoiled brat just crashed his entire surveillance operation at the worst possible moment. Jia bursts straight into the room demanding to see just how remarkable this Western courtesan really is. And the moment he looks inside, something stops him dead in his tracks. Ruyan calmly tells him the previous guest jumped out the window the second he heard the name Jia, and honestly, what a power move by our boy. Jia is actually impressed, calling it a smart move, and his ego just inflated another 3 sizes. But here is the real play. Wenming did not jump out the window. He is hiding under Ruyan's massive skirt, and this is simultaneously the most genius and most compromising hiding spot imaginable. Ruyan is holding back every instinct to explode, reminding herself she cannot let this eunuch be exposed yet because she still needs him for her plans. Jia starts laying on the flattery thick, gushing about how he has always heard of Lady Ruyan's beauty, and today must be his lucky day. He is practically glowing with hearts while Ruyan is internally plotting his destruction, thinking she can tolerate the eunuch, but this playboy is crossing lines. She tells herself she cannot afford to offend high-ranking nobles yet and offers to pour him some wine to calm the situation down. But then this fool grabs her hand, and Ruyan's expression shifts instantly from composed to genuinely alarmed. She tells him to show some respect because she is a proper courtesan who sells art and not her body, but Gia is not listening. This absolute degenerate lunges at her, saying he wants to test just how proper she really is, and Ruyan has officially hit her limit, and she unleashes a spinning kick that sends half the room flying, including Wenming, who is still under her skirt during all of this chaos. Wenming is getting ragdolled through the air like a piece of laundry caught in a tornado. Gia watches in total disbelief as this courtesan pulls off moves that belong in a martial arts tournament. She lands with a full acrobatic spin that would earn a perfect score in any competition, and the whole room is in shambles. Gia is just standing there with his jaw on the floor, screaming her name like he cannot process what just happened. And Ruyan has somehow landed with Wenming still trapped under her skirt, pinned beneath her on the floor, and this entire tableau is deeply questionable. She plays it off beautifully though, laughing and telling Gia that he just startled her because he was being so forceful. Meanwhile, Wenming is trapped under there thinking that this courtesan's martial arts skills are way too advanced for a normal entertainer, and then he spots something in the darkness, some kind of mark or tattoo that makes his eyes go wide with recognition. Whatever he just touched or found, Ruyan can feel it too, and her reaction is pure panic. Gia interprets her reaction as flirting and asks if she is trying to seduce him, while Ruyan is internally calling him a narcissistic fool. She is trying to figure out why this eunuch under her dress is not just sitting still, and the fact that it is too dark to see clearly is the only thing saving this situation. And then this absolute menace tells Ruyan he wants to join her in bed, and she is running out of polite ways to tell him no. He actually gets into the bed and starts gushing about how smooth her skin is, and Ruyan looks like she is about to commit a felony, and that is when she drops a massive bombshell. She calls herself a saintess and declares she is done playing nice with this idiot. But Gia, bless his entire lack of awareness, is now complimenting her skincare while also mentioning she should probably shave her leg hair more often. And then it hits him. Wait, leg hair? Since when does a woman who takes care of her skin have noticeable leg hair? Ruyan's face shifts too because she just realized that whatever Gia is touching under those covers is not her legs. She rips the covers back in a panic and both of them discover what has been hiding in there this entire time. It is Wenming, just sitting there like a startled gremlin, completely exposed, with Jia Zhengdao screaming his name in disbelief. And our boy, drenched in sweat, asks if they would believe him when he says he is just as confused as they are. And on that note, we will see you next episode. Jia has got Wenming by the collar, and our boy is panicking, begging him to talk this out like civilized people. Jia reminds him that leaving the palace without permission is a capital offense, and Wenming quickly throws Eunuch Hai under the bus, claiming the old man brought him here. But Jia's guards are already posted at every exit, and they confirm they never saw any old eunuch on the way in. Meanwhile, Eunuch Hai is lurking in the corridor, thinking he needs to retreat before things get messy, planning to test Wenming another day. Wenming tries to play the old friends card, but Jia shuts that down immediately, telling him it is way too late for that. And now we get the backstory. Apparently, Wenming bullied Jia relentlessly at the academy just because they both admired Her Majesty, even framing him for having accidents in his pants in front of her. And it gets worse. When Jia tried to enter the palace through the imperial exams, Wenming apparently swapped his test paper and made him fail completely. Even Ruyan is looking at Wenming sideways, and our boy has the nerve to call it a harmless joke between friends. But wait, Jia says that is not even the worst part of what Wenming did to him. After Jia failed the exams, Wenming had Her Majesty assign him to take care of horses, and this man has spent years surrounded by nothing but horse manure. And Wenming has the audacity to laugh and say he thought Jia liked horses, which is genuinely villainous behavior. Jia admits he was thrilled when he heard Wenming got castrated, and Wenming claps back, telling him to stop using celebrations as an excuse to visit brothels. Now Jia is dragging Wenming by the arm, threatening to report him to Her Majesty for sneaking out of the palace, and our boy is in full panic mode. But then Wenming's expression completely shifts, and he warns Jia that since he refuses to show mercy, he should not blame him for what comes next. And our boy grabs the nearest heavy object he can find, which happens to be a decorative vase. He goes full berserker mode, swinging that vase straight at Jia's head with genuine murderous intent. But Jia catches the vase mid-swing with one hand like he is swatting away a mosquito. Jia is confused because Wenming was never this strong before, and honestly even he seems surprised it came to this. But then Jia gets this villainous grin and says those years with the horses were not wasted because he mastered a secret technique. And this man proudly reveals his ultimate move, 100% bare-handed horse manure deflection. That is an actual technique name, and even Wenming cannot believe this is real. Jia now has Wenming completely pinned, telling him not to dream of leaving alive, while Wenming screams that his father will make him pay for this. Ruyan is watching this unfold and thinking that this eunuch is her only ticket into the inner palace, so she absolutely cannot let him get killed here. She decides to pull out a secret trick she was saving for later, because the situation has officially gotten that desperate. And just like that, she switches into full seduction mode, calling out to Gia with a voice dripping in honey and flower petals. She gives him the full display, asking why he would leave so soon without enjoying a drink with her, and the artist made absolutely sure we would all stop scrolling right here. She adds that the madam will blame her if he leaves without being properly entertained, and the camera angle is doing things that should require a permission slip. And Gia immediately short-circuits, admitting she has a point while his nose starts leaking. This man folded in about 3 seconds flat. But Gia is not completely stupid. He figures his guards are covering all the exits, so Wenming has nowhere to run even if he lets go for now. So he decides to indulge himself with Ruyan's hospitality, and he looks absolutely ridiculous doing it, nose practically turning into a pig snout. Gia tells Ruyan to serve him well and she will be rewarded handsomely, and she plays along perfectly, acting grateful and humble. And there it is, that wink. Ruyan is putting on the sweetest face imaginable, but behind those blue eyes the gears are turning at full speed. When Ming notices she seems to be helping him, but he is not naive enough to take it at face value, wondering what her real motive is, Ruyan pours Gia a drink and he accepts it with hearts practically floating around his head, completely smitten. Then she conveniently spills wine all over his clothes, and the way she says oops is the most calculated accident in recorded history. She apologizes for being so clumsy, and Gia is so brain-dead from her proximity that he immediately forgives everything. But then she throws the whole glass of enchanted wine directly into his face, and the liquid is glowing with some kind of purple mist. Ruyan's eyes narrow in satisfaction because whatever she just did, it worked perfectly. She asks if he is alright, and Gia can barely string together 2 words, just stammering like his brain has been unplugged. And then she activates something called Soul Enchanting Mist, her eyes glowing purple, telling him he is feeling sleepy and wants to obey her every command. When Ming is watching all of this and realizing she is using some kind of mind control technique on Gia, which is way beyond normal courtesan abilities, he connects the dots between her tattoo and this technique and concludes she must be connected to some kind of organization. Ruyan tells the hypnotized Gia that from now on he remembers seeing no one here but her, and he repeats it back like an obedient puppet. She gives him the final instruction that after a deep sleep he will follow her every command, and the man is completely gone. But then Gia suddenly snaps awake and jumps to his feet, and Ruyan's face says she did not plan for this contingency at all. He holds up the vial and calls her a witch for trying to drug him, and Ruyan is genuinely terrified, asking how he possibly woke up. And here is the most insane plot armor of the century. Years of handling horse manure completely destroyed Jia's sense of smell, making him immune to her poison. Even Wenming cannot believe this is a real advantage. Gia accuses them both of plotting against him and strikes Ruyan to the ground, and suddenly this comedy has gotten very real. But Wenming is not about to let this slide. He appears behind Jia with glowing eyes, ready to make his move, and he smashes that decorative vase directly over Jia's skull, which is a very creative use of interior design. Ruyan watches in disbelief as Jia stumbles from the blow, not expecting Wenming to actually jump in like that. Wenming is confused because Jia was supposed to catch anything thrown at him, but the drug actually did slow his reflexes enough for it to connect. Now Wenming confronts Ruyan directly, saying someone skilled in both combat and poisons is definitely not just a regular courtesan. And then she pulls the love at first sight card, saying her heart belonged to him the moment she laid eyes on him, and Wenming is absolutely not buying it. She grabs onto his arm and pulls herself close, and this whole interaction is starting to feel like a trap within a trap. Wenming spots the vial still in her hand and tells her the same trick will not work on him twice, but she just smiles and says he is different from other men. But then she trips him, and Wenming realizes that while his brain is sharp, his body simply does not have the power to back it up. She tells him flat out that he is smart but physically outmatched, and Wenming nervously asks what exactly she wants from him. She pins him down and tells him to just behave, promising she will not hurt him, and the visual right now is absolutely sending mixed signals on every possible level. Our boy is trapped underneath her, yelling at her not to try anything, which is a wild thing to say when you are the one who is completely helpless right now. And then Wenming's expression shifts to pure panic, muttering that he cannot hold something back, and the context here is extremely concerning. Ruyan pauses with genuine confusion, clearly not understanding what he is talking about. And then she looks down and her entire composure shatters, asking what on earth she is looking at right now. Her face turns the deepest shade of red physically possible, and let us just say the eunuch might not be as much of a eunuch as everyone thought. The guards outside hear Ruyan scream that it is huge, and they are just standing there debating whether she is talking about their young master. And on that note, we will see you next episode. Ruyan is still on top of our boy, and she has just confirmed what she thought was impossible. She's screaming that the evidence is literally right there, and he still dares call it a misunderstanding. Ruyan is furious because her intel told her this guy was a eunuch, and Wenming is down there begging her to stop squeezing. And now the gears are turning in her head, because if he was never a eunuch, then everything she did earlier was done to a fully intact man. So naturally her solution is to pull out a dagger and decide that the only way to fix this is murder. Wenming barely dodges the blade and cannot believe she is actually trying to end his life right now. Our boy throws himself across the room like his life depends on it, because it literally does. He's wondering how a simple brothel visit turned into a near-death experience. And honestly, that is a valid question. But Ruyan is not done because she launches a full combat technique at him, looking absolutely devastating while trying to devastate him. And the hit connects, slamming him straight into the wall with blood coming out of his mouth. She's winding up for the finishing blow, calling him a shameless pervert. And our boy is about to become a permanent fixture of this floor. But Wenming plays the only card he has left, screaming that if she kills him, she will never complete her mission for the Heaven Lotus sect. And that stops her dead in her tracks, those blue eyes going wide because he just dropped classified information. She immediately tries to deny any connection to the sect, and Wenming tells her straight up that her lying skills are genuinely terrible. Meanwhile, Jia is knocked out cold on the floor, and Ruyan casually admits she may have gotten a little too worked up just now. But internally, she's panicking because her cover is blown, and if anyone else finds out, she is in serious danger. She tries to play it off by reminding him that joining the Heaven Lotus sect is a capital offense, but Wenming just tells her to drop the act. He explains that every member of her sect has the Heaven Lotus mark tattooed on them, and he just saw hers with his own eyes. Ruyan's first instinct is to kill him even harder now, but Wenming desperately offers to help her with whatever mission brought her to the capital. But before either of them can decide anything, someone outside starts shouting for people to make way. And in walk two new characters who just turned this whole situation into a 5-alarm emergency. The silver-haired one is none other than Her Majesty the Emperor herself, and she is genuinely confused about why Wenming would come to a place like this. The pink-haired one is way less confused and way more ready to throw hands, declaring she has finally caught Wenming in the act. The guards try to block them, asking who this crazy woman is and telling her to get lost, and she proceeds to kick every single one of those guards into orbit without breaking a sweat. Inside the room, Ruyan and Wenming look up to find their situation just got infinitely more complicated. Wenming sees Her Majesty and immediately calls out to Seduction, saying she came at just the right time. Then this absolute genius drops to his knees and shouts "Long live the Emperor" at full volume, in a brothel, and she immediately tells him to shut up. And now there is the most painfully awkward silence as Ruyan and the Emperor just stare at each other. Ruyan is sizing her up, thinking so this is the dog emperor of the Marsil Empire, and noting she is much younger than expected. But then she senses the Emperor's aura, and it is absolutely terrifying, stronger than even her own master. The pink-haired girl starts grilling Wenming about why a eunuch is visiting brothels, and our boy insists Eunuch Hai just brought him here to eat. Her Majesty is not buying it either, asking how he somehow ended up pinned down by a courtesan, if he was just here for food. And right as Wenming is about to explain the truth, he feels a very specific chill running down his spine. He spins around to find Ruyan standing right behind him, and that exclamation mark above his head says everything. She's smiling that sweet smile while threatening to take him to the grave with her if he says the wrong thing. Our boy swallows hard because he now has to choose between exposing a secret agent and getting murdered by a secret agent. So he improvises the most absurd cover story possible, saying Ruyan was just a masseuse finding his acupuncture points, and she nervously agrees. And Her Majesty actually buys it, saying she wants a massage too because her arms are sore from paperwork, while the pink-haired girl begs her not to be this gullible. Ruyan has no choice but to go along with it, nervously saying this humble girl will obey the request. She whispers at Wenming to help her out since he made up this lie, and he just thinks to himself that this is her problem now. Ruyan gives him one last warning that if he leaves her hanging, she is dragging him straight to the bottom with her. So she pivots to plan B, telling everyone she discovered a huge secret about Wenming, and now all eyes are on her. She leans in close to Her Majesty and starts whispering, and the tension in this room just went through the roof. But Wenming intercepts with the speed of a man whose life depends on it, shouting that the secret is that he is also a masseuse. He spins this entire tale about how Ruyan learned his techniques and pushed him down to test them, and Her Majesty just nods and says that makes sense. Behind the scenes, both of them are furiously scheming because the pink-haired girl is clearly not buying any of this. And she proves it by calling them out for winking at each other non-stop because apparently subtlety is not their strong suit. Then she points at the unconscious body on the floor and asks the very reasonable question of why someone is knocked out if this was just a massage session. So Wenming pulls out an Oscar-worthy performance, sobbing about how Jia Zhengdao tricked and tormented him just because he was castrated, and even Ruyan is impressed by his acting. Her Majesty is completely moved, saying Jia is too cruel to treat Wenming like that, while the pink-haired girl is practically screaming not to fall for his act. So she decides to take matters into her own hands, saying all she needs to do is wake up the unconscious witness and the whole lie collapses. She starts slapping Jia awake immediately, and Wenming is losing his mind, trying to stop her because this is about to unravel everything. And Jia slowly comes to, looking completely disoriented and wondering where on earth he even is right now. Jia looks directly at Wenming and says his name, and our boy knows with absolute certainty that there is no covering this up anymore. Jia Zhengdao wakes up and immediately starts running his mouth, calling Wenming a little brat. And the pink-haired girl is absolutely thrilled, demanding Jia spill every last one of Wenming's dirty secrets. And this fool starts cackling about how Wenming became a eunuch, saying it serves him right. Both the pink-haired girl and Her Majesty freeze at the same time, because that was definitely not the bombshell they were expecting. Jia is now trying to buddy up with the pink-haired girl, asking if she is also his enemy, and celebrating the eunuch situation like it is a holiday. Meanwhile, Ruyan reveals she already used her soul enchanting mist on Jia, meaning he should have lost part of his memory and cannot expose them. But Jia clearly did not get the memo about forgetting, because he is still going on about how Wenming is a eunuch now. And then this man reaches a level of delusion previously thought impossible, declaring that with Wenming out of the picture, a cold voice asks him about his confidence, and this absolute champion brags that his father, the Prime Minister, has already arranged everything. And then the realization hits him like a freight train as he recognizes exactly whose voice that was. He turns around to find the Empress herself standing right there, radiating an aura that could level a city block. Her Majesty does not hesitate for a single second, ordering his father Jia Reni demoted 3 ranks and sentencing this idiot back to shoveling horse stalls. Jia tries to get close and beg for mercy, so she casually swats him across the room like a mosquito. Wenming and Ruyan just stand there watching the carnage in complete silence. Because what do you even say to that? Ruyan stares at Jia's body embedded in the floor and thinks to herself that she is absolutely no match for this emperor. The pink-haired girl, whose name is Cece, asks Sister Wuxin if she went too hard, and Wuxin assures her it was a controlled slap with no brain damage. Though looking at the man-shaped crater in the floor with a sword sticking out of his backside, no brain damage feels optimistic. But then Jia regains consciousness and his memories come flooding back, remembering everything about Wenming and that woman. And Wenming and Ruyan both realize at the exact same time that the memory wipe did not stick. Wenming turns to Ruyan demanding answers, and she nervously explains that a head injury can actually reverse memory loss, which is apparently a very complicated process. Wenming is internally spiraling because if Jia tells everyone what he saw, it is game over for both of them. Cece is practically bouncing with excitement, telling Jia to expose all of Wenming's crimes, and Jia starts from the very beginning. But our boy Wenming swoops in with the most diabolical interruption, casually pointing out that there seems to be a sword lodged in Jia's behind, and before anyone can object, he rips that thing out with the biggest grin on his face while blood goes absolutely everywhere. And Cece, who apparently cannot handle blood, immediately passes out cold while Wuxin catches her in a panic. Wenming jumps on the opportunity, urgently insisting that Cece needs to see the imperial physician immediately and that Her Majesty should take her right now. He then volunteers to handle Jia personally and make sure he gets home safe, and Wuxin agrees without a second thought. Ruyan gives him a look of genuine respect, telling him he is pretty capable, and our boy is looking entirely too pleased with himself. Now with the Empress gone, Wenming asks Ruyan how to make Jia forget again, and she suggests another solid hit to the back of the head should do the trick. And Wenming grins that grin that means someone is about to have a very bad day. He picks up a decorative vase and holds it overhead like it is Excalibur, dubbing it the memory-erasing vase. Jia looks up in absolute terror, asking what he is doing, and Wenming apologizes, saying this is purely for his own safety. And from outside the building, all you can hear is a scream echoing across the entire district. And just like that, Jia Zhengdao is face down on the floor with a fresh bump on his skull and zero recollection of the last few hours. With that crisis handled, Wenming turns to Ruyan and suggests that after everything they just went through, they are practically allies now. But Ruyan shuts that down immediately, saying this saintess has zero interest in allying with a fake eunuch, looking absolutely devastating while doing it. Wenming is not giving up that easy, pointing out that her Heaven Lotus sect infiltrated the capital for a reason, and having a man on the inside of the palace would be invaluable. She crosses her arms and asks the obvious question, why exactly should she trust him to help her? And Wenming drops the act entirely, revealing that his father is the Northern Marquis who rebelled against the Empire, and that he despises them for ordering his castration. Ruyan pauses and asks the follow-up question everyone has been wondering, whether he is actually a eunuch or not. And this man decides the most efficient way to prove it is to just show her, causing Ruyan to scream at him to put his pants back on immediately while turning completely red. He explains that the Empress watches his every move and if she discovers the truth he is dead, but Ruyan says words alone still are not enough to convince her. Wenming starts to ask what she wants as proof, and mid-sentence something gets launched directly into his mouth. He starts choking and demands to know what she just forced him to swallow, while Ruyan stands there looking entirely too satisfied with herself. She reveals it was her specially refined yin-yang harmonizing pill, and that the effects will not kick in for 7 days. Look at her being all gorgeous while casually poisoning somebody. Wenming immediately asks the million-dollar question, what happens after 7 days? She cheerfully explains he will transform into an uncontrollable beast driven purely by desire, completely blowing his fake eunuch cover, and Wenming can only think that women are truly the most ruthless creatures alive. He is furious about being poisoned when he genuinely wanted to help, but she sweetly assures him that if he cooperates, the pill will actually benefit him in the long run. Her Her terms are simple: gather intelligence inside the palace and return in 7 days for the antidote. Wenming has no choice but to accept. But in his mind he is making a very different promise, vowing that once his father's rebellion succeeds, the Heaven Lotus sect will be the first thing he burns to the ground. Later that night, back at the palace in Wenming's quarters, something is already stirring. A masked figure silently drops into his room through the window like a shadow. The intruder curses Jia Zhengdao under his breath, furious that the fool ruined his plan at the most critical moment. But then he reaches into his robes with a glint in his eye, saying that fortunately he came prepared. He pulls out what looks like a blood-stained token and declares he still has a second plan, and whatever this guy is scheming cannot possibly be good news for our boy. So our boy Wenming gets back to his quarters and immediately Cici is on his case, treating him like a suspect in his own home. But Wenming is not worried about Cici's attitude right now. He is worried about whoever keeps breaking into his room like it has a revolving door. And then both of them notice something is off at the same time. He distinctly remembers closing every door and window before he left. So why is this one wide open? He is starting to wonder if maybe his room actually is haunted. Cici, ever the helpful companion, suggests he probably just forgot, and then immediately pivots to asking if his guilty reaction proves he has something to hide. Wenming snaps back that everyone has been tormenting him all day and he has not even had a single sip of water, which honestly is a valid complaint given what he has been through. Now here is where it gets spicy. Remember the masked intruder from last episode? He is perched on the ceiling beams like a gargoyle, and there is a cup of water conveniently sitting right there for Wenming to find. And the masked figure is up there thinking, yes, drink it all, which is exactly the kind of inner monologue that gets you on a watch list. And Wenming, completely oblivious, grabs the cup and brings it straight to his mouth. But right as he starts chugging, Cici suddenly yells for him to stop, and Wenming nearly chokes on the spot. Cici's eyes lock onto that cup of water, and something about it has her full attention. She snatches the cup right out of his hands, claiming she has been busy all day too and deserves it first. And up in the rafters, the masked figure is absolutely losing it because his target was Wenming, not her. Wenming pauses and says he could swear he just heard someone else's voice in the room, and Cici casually dismisses it as an echo. Sure, an echo. In a wooden room. Totally normal. Before he can investigate further, Cici decides she cannot wait another second and starts drinking that water right in front of him. And the way this girl drinks water should be classified as a federal offense. The artist put their entire life savings into this scene, and honestly the viewers are being absolutely fed right now. She finishes with a satisfied sigh, looking like she just filmed a premium commercial, and at this point even Wenming cannot pretend he is not affected. Wenming is internally screaming, asking himself why this girl has to make drinking water look like a whole performance piece. Meanwhile, our masked stalker is having the worst night of his life, furious that someone always manages to derail his schemes at the worst possible moment. But then he remembers his fire desire powder works on both men and women, so if this girl falls under its effects, he can still use her to test whether Wenming is actually a eunuch. And that plan is giving full-blown entrapment energy. Cici, completely unbothered, tells Wenming if he wants water so badly he can go fetch it from the courtyard well himself. Our boy calls her a stubborn brat and storms off. So Wenming trudges out to the courtyard well with a bucket, only to find a sign posted right next to it. The sign says a eunuch jumped into the well today, so it is temporarily out of service, and to please fetch water from Yihe Garden 2 miles away. This man cannot catch a single break. He absolutely loses it and slams the bucket down, yelling about who in their right mind is walking 2 miles to some garden in the middle of the night. Fair point, honestly. And the masked figure, still lurking, reveals to himself that his aphrodisiac can only be cured by ice water. Without it, there is no escape from the drug's effects. This man really planned out every contingency. Wenming gives up and decides he will just wait until morning and hit up the imperial kitchen. But when he turns around, something is very different. Cici asks him if he is really that thirsty, and Wenming casually confirms he has no idea what is about to hit him. Because Cici turns around and she is absolutely drenched in sweat, face flushed crimson, telling him she feels burning hot and thirsty too. The drugged water has officially kicked in, and the scene that is unfolding right now would make the content moderation team sweat. She starts moving toward him, saying they should find a way to quench their thirst together, and Wenming's entire survival instinct kicks into overdrive as he demands to know what she is trying to do. Their faces end up inches apart, and Wenming is screaming at her to back up, which is absolutely the wrong thing to say to someone who just got hit with a desired drug, and she just goes for it. Full kiss. Cherry blossoms falling everywhere like the universe decided this moment needed cinematic production value. Wenming's brain has completely blue-screened. He shoves her away and screams that was his first kiss, and he has not even kissed his actual sweetheart yet. The betrayal in his voice is actually kind of hilarious given the circumstances. But Cici is completely gone at this point, clothes barely hanging on, muttering that it was not enough. The drug has this girl operating on pure instinct and zero shame. She lunges at him again with literal stars in her eyes demanding more, and Wenming is yelling at her to stop, calling her a perverted woman. The role reversal here is peak comedy. While holding her back, Wenming starts putting the pieces together. She is clearly drugged, and he starts panicking that maybe the yin-yang pill Ruyan gave him is somehow contagious. Which, no, Wenming, that is not how pills work. Then a worse thought hits him. What if the Empress sent Cece specifically to test whether he is really castrated? Because if he reacts to any of this, his cover is blown and he is a dead man. Wenming bolts for the door and Cece is right behind him trying to pull his clothes off. The masked figure watches from the shadows, mentally cheering her on, hoping she exposes Wenming's secret. This entire room has descended into pure chaos. They end up right at the courtyard well, Cece on the ground still grabbing at his clothes while Wenming is begging her to stop pulling his pants down. This is not the kind of struggle he prepared for tonight. But then Wenming locks in. He is thinking this girl is definitely testing him, and he refuses to let some seduction attempt compromise everything he has built. His resolve is ironclad right now. So what does our genius protagonist do? He grabs Cece and jumps straight into the well with her, both of them toppling over the edge in a tangled mess. They splash down into the cold water at the bottom, and Wenming yells up, asking how she plans to test him now that they are both soaking in freezing well water. The cold should neutralize the drug, and his cover stays intact. Galaxy brain play, honestly. The masked figure comes sprinting over to the well, absolutely furious that nobody in this palace can follow his carefully crafted plans for even 5 minutes. But then he stops. Something catches his eye, a small feather drifting through the air, and whatever it means has completely grabbed his attention. Now we cut to an entirely different part of the palace where someone is screaming bloody murder, and it is not Wenming for once. It is Jia Rennie's father, and he is absolutely livid. Not only did his son get caught visiting brothels, but the Empress herself caught wind of it, and now the old man has been demoted 3 whole ranks because of his idiot offspring. Jia Rennie tries to explain himself and immediately throws Wenming under the bus, blaming everything on that eunuch. His father fires back that blaming a powerless, discarded eunuch for outsmarting him only makes him look even more pathetic. And honestly, the old man has a point there. But because family is family, the father declares he will personally settle the score with Wenming, and Jia Rennie is down there hyping him up like a fanboy at a concert. New enemy just dropped for our protagonist. The father warns that times are politically unstable and orders his son grounded for 3 months to focus on his studies. Jia Rennie accepts without argument, which might be the smartest thing he has done all series. As Jia Rennie shuffles out looking absolutely miserable, 2 of his father's retainers notice something about the way he is walking. One of them asks what happened to his leg, and the other reports that it appears Wenming actually stabbed the young master with a dagger during their confrontation. They even recovered the weapon from the scene and preserved it as evidence. Smart move on their part, but this dagger is about to cause way more problems than they realize. The father's retainer takes one look at the dagger and his expression changes completely. He recognizes something about it, because engraved on the handle is the unmistakable crest of the Heaven Lotus sect. The dagger that the masked figure planted, the one that was never supposed to be traced, is now sitting in the hands of one of the most powerful families in the empire, and things are about to get very complicated for everyone involved. Now here is where we get some crucial backstory because the Jia family just stumbled onto something huge. In the 14th year of Chu Yuan, massive floods devastated the northern borders and not a single grain was harvested. Legend says a mysterious sage rode in on a white donkey from the west, and with a simple wave of his sleeve could conjure bags of grain out of thin air to feed the starving masses. But of course the local government official could not have some random sage showing him up, so he dispatched soldiers to arrest both the sage and all the suffering people he was trying to help. Peak bureaucracy right there. Except the sage's white donkey had a surprise form. It transformed into an absolute unit of a man and proceeded to obliterate every single government lackey sent after them. This donkey was out here built like a final boss. And from that moment the Heaven Lotus sect was born. The sage became a divine figure to the people, promising happiness to the living and paradise for the departed. An entire religion spawned from one charitable donkey ride. Now this is the history that the Jia family's retainer just dug up, and his conclusion is immediate. He calls it rebellion, treason, the kind of word that gets entire bloodlines erased from history. And here is the kicker. The retainer declares that the Heaven Lotus sect appears to be closely connected to the Wen family. That dagger Wenming used on Jia Rennie just opened an entirely new can of worms. But Jia Rennie's father is no fool. He tells the retainer to hold off because a single dagger alone does not prove anything. He is going to need something more concrete before making his move. So he hands over 100 taels of silver and orders the retainer to investigate everyone that Wenming has been in contact with recently. The retainer has the audacity to imply 100 taels is not enough, and the father absolutely loses it because that is nearly half his monthly salary. The man controls 2 entire government ministries and he is still broke. This man starts pulling out secret money hidden inside his shoes, and the retainer is begging him to please stop undressing. The head of 2 ministries has a shoe stash his wife does not know about. Absolutely elite financial management. The retainer points out that when the Minister of Rights lost his dog, the bounty was 4,000 taels, but father brushes it off because to him, money is just money. The man is painfully frugal and weirdly noble about it, because his real play is not about silver at all. In 3 days there is a banquet, and he plans to expose the Wen family's conspiracy right in front of the emperor. If it works, his rank gets restored and his son becomes an imperial consort, and then he drops the line that makes this personal. He says Wen Ming's life is his, both as a public servant and as a father protecting his family. Another enemy added to the queue, and this one actually has political power. Now we cut back to the well where we left our boy and Cece last episode, and the commotion has clearly not stopped. Wen Ming is down there looking absolutely pleased with himself, bragging to his inner voice about how clever he is. He is convinced this girl will never be able to test him again now that the cold water has neutralized everything. But then he notices something that wipes that smirk right off his face. Cece has completely passed out, eyes spiraling, body limp. She is straight up unconscious at the bottom of a well full of water. Minor oversight in the genius escape plan. Wen Ming grabs her immediately, and his first thought is not concern for her well-being, but that if she dies, little Sing Sing will absolutely never forgive him. Priorities slightly skewed, but at least he is moving. He bursts to the surface screaming for air. Cece still limp in his arms, and the panic in his voice is very real right now. He manages to snag the well rope with one hand while keeping Cece above water with the other, and starts climbing them both out through sheer willpower. They finally make it out, and both of them are just sprawled on the ground, soaking wet and completely spent. Wen Ming is sobbing from exhaustion, and Cece is still out cold. He openly admits he regrets dragging her into that well. The man went from galaxy brain to regret speedrun in about 90 seconds flat. He rushes over to check on her, yelling about whether she is actually dead. And the way the manhwa frames this shot tells you exactly what kind of series this is. The camera is doing zero favors for anyone trying to maintain composure. Good news is she still has a pulse. Bad news is she will not wake up no matter what he does. The drug plus the near drowning has her completely knocked out. And then Wen Ming gets this look on his face that would absolutely not hold up in court, saying if she will not wake up on her own, then she cannot blame him for what comes next. His hands go straight for her chest, which looks extremely incriminating from any angle you view it from. But he is actually doing chest compressions. Turns out he remembers his first aid training from before he got isekai'd into this world, and he has been dying for a chance to use it, phrasing Wen Ming. Phrasing, although he cannot help but notice that Cece's physical assets are significantly more impressive than even Jingxin's. The man is performing emergency medical care and still taking inventory. Absolutely unhinged behavior. His conscience immediately slaps him back to reality, reminding him that he is currently operating as a eunuch and has zero business letting his mind wander. He must remain utterly devoted to Jingxin and Jingxin alone. But the compressions are not working. She coughed up water but still will not open her eyes, which means he needs to move on to the next step of the procedure, and you already know where this is going. He tilts her chin up to open her airway, and this is the moment Cece actually starts coming to. Her eyes flutter open just enough to register that someone is very close to her face right now. Wen Ming shouts that he refuses to let her die, and Cece, still half-conscious, is thinking to herself, why does this eunuch who should hate her look so desperately worried about saving her life? She is wondering why he is showing her genuine concern when he has every reason to despise her. And then he announces that he is about to give her artificial respiration. And Cece's eyes snap wide open with the force of 1,000 alarm bells going off at once. She absolutely decks him, full power punch while screaming about what he thinks he is doing to a genius like her. Wen Ming goes flying, and any gratitude she might have had is replaced with raw violence. He tries explaining that he only did it because he thought she was going to die, and Cece fires back that there is no such thing as saving someone by kissing them. She refuses to accept that mouth-to-mouth resuscitation is a real medical technique. Wen Ming just lets out the most defeated sigh of his entire transmigrated existence. He nearly drowned saving this girl, and she thanked him with a fist to the face. He waves it off and tells her he is just glad she is not dead, and that simple, honest statement catches Cece completely off guard. She goes quiet for the first time all night, because she is realizing that even after she attacked him, tried to expose him, and literally punched him in the face just now, this guy still genuinely cared whether she lived or died. And that is making her feel something she was not prepared for. She starts wondering what she would even tell Sister Wuxin about all of this, because the feelings developing right now were absolutely not part of the mission briefing. When Ming, completely oblivious to the emotional crisis happening 3 feet away from him, just says it is late and they should dry off and get some rest. He reaches down to help her up, asking why she is still just sitting there. The man genuinely does not understand what he is doing to this girl's psyche right now, and she smacks his hand away. Full sunder deflection, textbook execution, no notes. She warns him not to do anything that would put the Empress in a difficult position again. Wen Ming is confused, but Cece is basically saying, I will not report you this time, just do not make me regret it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the palace, we cut to the Internal Affairs office, specifically the private residence of Eunuch Hai. And Eunuch Hai is burning the midnight oil, hunched over his desk going through documents. The man clearly has more on his plate than just managing palace affairs, because the letter he is reading contains direct orders. In 3 days, when the Northern Barbarian envoys arrive, he is supposed to poison the imperial banquet and create chaos. This is a full-blown assassination plot. He burns the letter and scoffs at the plan. The Empress's banquet has silver needle poison tests and eunuchs who taste every dish before it is served. Relying on poison alone is laughable to him. But then a voice from the shadows tells him not to worry, that the prince has already thought of everything. Eunuch Hai spins around and is visibly shaken by who he sees standing in his private chambers. It is Huang Tianli, red eyes, straw hat, the kind of presence that tells you this man has a body count. And the fact that a prince sent him personally means this operation just got significantly more dangerous. Eunuch Hai notes that if the prince sent someone of this caliber, he must be absolutely certain this plan will succeed. The stakes just escalated beyond anything Wenming currently knows about. Huang Tianli smoothly says they are both essential to the prince's grand plan, playing humble while radiating the energy of someone who could end your life between sentences. He announces he will be stationed in the capital to assist, and the two exchange polite words that are absolutely dripping with mutual suspicion underneath. And the moment Huang Tianli looks away, Eunuch Hai is already thinking that this man was not sent to help him. Huang Tianli hands over a small vial and explains that this poison is completely colorless, tasteless, and undetectable even by silver needles. It was designed specifically for this operation. Eunuch Hai pushes back, reminding him that palace maids and eunuchs taste test everything. But Huang Tianli has already accounted for that. This poison takes half a day to activate, long after the tasters have cleared the food, and the effects are nightmarish. The victim's lungs slowly wither like autumn leaves until they suffocate to death, and the process is completely irreversible once it starts. Whoever gets hit with this is a walking dead person. Even Eunuch Hai, a man who has clearly done terrible things in service of this prince, looks genuinely horrified by what he is holding. He demands to know the name of this poison, and under the moonlit sky the answer drifts through the palace halls. It is called Witherbane, and this weapon of mass destruction is now sitting inside the imperial palace. 7 days later, we fast forward to the imperial garden, and the whole palace is buzzing with preparations for the incoming northern barbarian envoys. And someone is absolutely not enjoying the preparations. Cece is out here drenched in sweat from manual labor, and the artist once again decided that exhaustion needed to be drawn from this specific angle. We see you, Manhwa. She is complaining about how the northern barbarian envoy is arriving soon, and somehow she, a prodigious talent, got assigned to weed duty. The indignity is clearly eating at her more than the actual labor. But then she spots Wenming across the courtyard, sitting by himself and doing something that catches her attention. And she just stares at him in silence, her expression a complicated mix of annoyance and something softer that she clearly does not want to acknowledge right now. She marches over and catches him slacking off, and Wenming immediately hits her with the most shameless laugh, saying he is just taking a quick break and will help her in a second. She asks what he is hiding, and he casually claims it is just a list of notes he wrote about how to deal with the northern barbarian envoys, which sounds innocent enough until you think about it for 2 seconds. And Sissy does think about it. Her spy instincts kick in immediately. Why would a low-ranking eunuch need notes on foreign diplomacy unless he was planning to use the envoy to contact his exiled father? She is not buying it for a second and launches herself at him, demanding he hand it over. Wenming screams her name in pure desperation as she wrestles him for the document. She tackles him to the ground, yelling that he is not escaping this time, and Wenming is begging her to wait because this situation is spiraling out of control at record speed, and the position they end up in is catastrophic for his cover. His face is pressed directly against her body, and he is internally screaming about why this girl has to be built like an absolute weapon of mass distraction. Because if his body reacts to any of this, his entire eunuch disguise is finished. Everyone within eyeshot will know he is very much not what he claims to be, and that means execution. But he also cannot just shove her off because that would look equally suspicious and ruin the intelligence he is gathering for Lu Ruyan. He is trapped in the worst possible way with zero good options. Our boy's brain has fully short-circuited. He is seeing stars, spinning in circles mentally, and completely unable to figure out how to escape this situation without blowing his cover or his dignity. And then a voice rings out across the garden announcing that Her Majesty the Empress is arriving and everyone needs to clear the way. Both Wenming and Cece freeze in place because they are currently tangled together on the ground. And in walks the Empress herself. And listen, the character designers went absolutely feral with this one. Silver hair, red and white imperial robes, with a presence that makes every other character in this series look like background art. She is devastatingly gorgeous and radiates pure authority. And the very first thing the Empress sees upon entering the Imperial Garden is Wenming and Cece piled on top of each other in the most compromising position imaginable. The look on her face says everything, and this is where the episode cuts off. Absolutely diabolical cliffhanger. The Empress herself is now demanding to know what Cece thinks she is doing with Wenming in broad daylight, and Cece immediately goes into full panic mode, swearing it is not what it looks like. The Empress glances down and spots Wenming, and our boy freezes like a deer caught in torchlight because the last thing he needs is the ruler of the entire dynasty staring directly at him. Wenming cranks the charm to 11, asking how he could possibly have ill intentions toward his sweet little Empress. The audacity of this man to flirt his way out of a death sentence is genuinely impressive. He goes all in and tells Cece to search him because he has nothing to hide. Cece is immediately skeptical, and honestly she should be because this man is a walking collection of classified secrets. Cece calls his bluff and says she saw him tuck a brush in his inner lining earlier, and Wenming is losing his mind because she is about to start stripping him right in front of the Empress. And before Cece can expose anything, she gets bonked right on the skull and starts seeing constellations. Someone just shut this investigation down with extreme prejudice. And that's why, watching her die, he wonders if what happened to her is just karma accumulating. He starts to lift her, but wonders if at least helping her now might earn him some good virtues. The Empress personally grabs Cece by the ear and tells her to stop bullying Wenming and come along. Cece is screaming about the ear, and Wenming is just watching this miracle unfold. The Empress walks off, dragging Cece behind her, and Wenming just stands there in silence watching them go, trying to process the fact that he somehow survived that. The stress lines on this man's face tell you everything. That was way too close for comfort, and he knows it. And then Wenming internally thanks his daily pelvic floor exercises for keeping his cover intact. Yes, you heard that correctly. This man has a training regimen specifically designed to maintain his eunuch disguise. The dedication is honestly terrifying, but he cannot relax yet, because the 7-day deadline for Lu Rian's poison is almost up. He needs to trade the palace floor plan for the antidote before his body gives out. He pulls out the scroll he has been working on and hopes this map of the palace defenses is enough to earn Lu Rian's trust, because if it is not, he is a dead man walking. Meanwhile, Eunuch Hai is having his own crisis. He is thinking that if the prince succeeds in poisoning the Empress, his entire personal scheme crumbles. This man is playing triple agent and the walls are closing in. He cannot let the prince or Huang Tianli discover what he is secretly planning. And on top of all that, he needs to find the Wen family's cultivation technique before anyone else does. Everybody in this palace is running their own side quest. And right on cue, Eunuch Hai overhears someone at the gate dropping his name to get permission to leave the palace, claiming they need to buy supplies for the barbarian envoy reception. Our boy strolls through the gate with the biggest grin on his face, not realizing that Eunuch Hai is right behind him, already putting together that this brat just used his authority to sneak out of the palace. Eunuch Hai's brain immediately jumps to the obvious conclusion. Wenming must be sneaking out to recover his family's secret cultivation technique, and now the old man is practically salivating at the opportunity. Eunuch Hai immediately tells him, giddy, that heaven handed him this chance. He is convinced the Wen family legacy will soon be his. Two people leaving the palace with completely different goals, and neither knows what the other is really after. Back inside the palace, the Empress dismisses her attendants and tells them to wait outside. Whatever she is about to discuss with Cece, it is not for everyone's ears. The doors slam shut behind them, sealing whatever comes next in complete privacy. And the Empress takes her seat, and the artist once again chose violence with this composition. The character designers knew exactly what they were doing here, and I refuse to believe otherwise. She tells Cece that she has been monitoring Wenming for days and has not found anything strange about him. The Empress sitting there looking absolutely unreal in those stockings and red heels while casually discussing intelligence reports is doing permanent damage to my focus. But Cece is not backing down. She insists that Wenming is absolutely hiding something and tells the Empress not to let her guard down. Her spy instincts are screaming and she needs someone to listen. She doubles down, saying she has caught him acting suspiciously multiple times and just needs a bit more time to nail down the evidence. The Empress raises an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by Cece's dedication. The Empress is actually surprised that someone as impatient as Cece has not given up after all this wasted time. Cece plays it humble, saying she just wants to lighten Her Majesty's burdens. The Empress goes quiet for a moment, just watching Cece casually sip her tea like she did not just reveal way more than she intended to. And then the Empress gets this look in her eye that should make Cece very, very nervous. Because the Empress straight up asks if Cece has fallen for Wenming, and Cece does a full spit take that probably launched tea across the entire room. Her denial is so loud that it echoes across the entire palace grounds and startles random servants who were just minding their own business. Cece is in full meltdown mode. She hates that guy, thank you very much, and besides, he is just a eunuch who is way beneath someone of her caliber. The lady doth protest way too much. The Empress calmly says there is no need to explain, she already understands everything, and the way she says it makes Cece freeze, because that tone could mean anything. And then the Empress hits her with the fact that Wenming is smart, handsome, and even if Cece has caught feelings, she will not blame her. The Empress is literally wingmanning for a guy she thinks is a eunuch. Cece is about to lose her entire mind. Cece finally snaps and asks if the Empress seriously called her into a private audience just to gossip about romance. The exasperation on her face is priceless. The Empress finally gets serious and says she actually summoned Cece to discuss how to handle the Northern Barbarian envoys. So all of that teasing was just the warm-up. The Empress points out something that has been bothering her. The Marquis of Zhenbei is in full rebellion, yet the Northern Barbarians have not exploited the chaos. Instead, they sent an envoy, which makes absolutely zero strategic sense. Cece smugly announces that her genius already figured that out and pulls out a scroll with a confidence level that honestly has no business being that high. She unfurls a full map of the empire, and even the Empress looks surprised. Cece came to this meeting prepared with visual aids. She explains that the Yanyun Pass, guarded by the Marquis of Zhenbei, has always been the critical defensive choke point against the northern tribes. Now that the Marquis has rebelled and the pass has fallen, neither he nor the barbarians have made a move south, because the rebellion happened too suddenly for the Marquis to get his son Wen Ming out of the capital first. If the barbarians march south while Wen Ming is still here, the Empress would have him executed immediately. The Marquis's own son is a hostage he did not plan for. But the old fox is banking on the Empress being too sentimental to actually execute Wen Ming, and that hesitation is the only reason the barbarians have not attacked yet. The Empress quietly admits that this tracks. The Empress wonders if keeping Wen Ming in the capital means the Marquis is stuck in a permanent standoff, but Cece smirks and says that is precisely what the barbarians are here to fix. Cece drops the bomb. The envoys are not here to negotiate anything. Their real mission is to secretly extract Wen Ming from the capital. Once he is safe, the Marquis and the barbarians can attack with nothing holding them back. The Empress's face goes pale as the full scope of this conspiracy hits her. This is not just diplomacy gone wrong. The Empress immediately calls for Zhu Huayu, and a dark-haired woman materializes from the shadows with a swift response. We have a new character, and she radiates the energy of someone who handles problems that cannot be solved with words. The Empress demands a status report on the barbarian envoys. Zhu Huayu reports that the 3 envoys from the Northern Alliance did not follow protocol and never came to the palace for their official reception. Instead, they detoured straight to Qianghua House. And listen, Zhu Huayu's character design is absolutely not being wasted here. Dark hair, blue eyes, that red combat outfit. The art team is feeding the audience on a schedule at this point. Both the Empress and Cece react with shock. Qianghua House is not exactly where foreign diplomats should be spending their first hours in the capital, and that is when it clicks for Cece. Every piece of the puzzle snaps into place at once, and she declares she finally understands everything about what is really happening. She urges the Empress to go to Qianghua House immediately, because the truth is waiting for them there. And now every major player in this story is converging on the same location. Because Wen Ming is already at Qianghua House, and the welcoming party is extremely enthusiastic. Women are all over him the second he walks in, and he is desperately trying to explain he is only here to see one specific person. The courtesans know he is a regular here for Lu Ruyan and immediately start teasing him about it, trying to get him to stay for drinks. Wen Ming's eyes are literally spinning from the sensory overload. He is internally losing it, thinking that no matter how many times he comes here, this place is too much for him. He just needs to grab the antidote from Lu Ruyan and get out before his cover gets any more complicated. But then a booming voice cuts through the entire establishment, demanding to see whoever is in charge. Wen Ming whips around because that energy does not belong to a normal customer. And in walks a group of men who are very clearly not from around here. The big red-haired one at the front has the kind of build that suggests he bench presses livestock for fun, and his entourage is demanding everyone make way. This is Batar, one of the barbarian envoys, and he is surveying Qianghua House with the casual arrogance of someone who has never been told no in his life. These are the so-called diplomats the Empress was just worrying about. The old madam of the house rushes out to greet them, and the barbarian attendant wastes exactly 0 seconds demanding they bring out the prettiest girls immediately. Subtle as a battering ram, these people. The madam puts on her best customer service smile and ushers them inside, but you can already tell she is reading this situation for exactly what it is. Because the second they walk past her, she drops the act and quietly tells her staff to get the bouncers ready and send word to the local authorities. Smart woman who has clearly dealt with dangerous clients before. Meanwhile, the second barbarian, a bald man called Aobu, reminds Batar that this is not a vacation, they have a mission. Batar grumbles about not even being allowed to enjoy a final meal in peace, which is a pretty ominous thing to call a trip to a pleasure house. But Batar has already spotted a girl among the courtesans that catches his eye, and the way he is looking at her has no respect or restraint in it whatsoever. He grabs her by the arm and declares she looks decent enough, telling her to come with him. The girl tries to protest, but this man has the grip strength of someone who wrestles bears for sport. When Ming has been watching all of this unfold, he immediately clocks their clothing as northern style and starts piecing together that these are not ordinary visitors to the capital. The barbarian attendant catches Wen Ming staring and immediately threatens him. Wen Ming puts on his most harmless smile and says he does not even know the girl, completely backing down. The attendant smugly declares that all Wu dynasty men are cowards, and Wen Ming just sits there in silence taking the insult. But the look in his eyes says he is filing this one away for later. Internally, Wen Ming was hoping these might be the official envoys who could give him information about his father, but real diplomats would never act like street thugs in a place like this. They are probably just regular northerners with too much attitude, but he does not have time to investigate further because the poison is starting to kick in. He is sweating, hallucinating mushrooms, and his body is telling him the deadline just became very real and very urgent. He bolts from his seat with no time to waste, but someone in the shadows is watching him leave. And this watcher has just figured out that the secret cultivation manual must be hidden somewhere in Qianghua House. The plot threads are tangling at an alarming rate. Wen Ming is desperately calling out for Lu Ruyan, screaming that he cannot hold on any longer. The poison is reaching critical mass and our boy is running out of time. He tears through the hallway of Kyonghwa House at full speed, rounding corners like his life depends on it because it literally does. And he slams directly into someone, face first, into the most unfortunate possible landing zone. This is somehow even worse than the Cece situation from earlier, because the woman he just collided with is very clearly not amused. They end up in a pile on the floor and the blonde woman is absolutely furious, demanding to know if he has ever heard of looking where he is going. Wenming fires back that she was standing right in the middle of the hallway. She grabs his head and tells him to get off her immediately, and the threat in her voice suggests this is not a request she plans to repeat. She threatens to make him a real eunuch if he tries anything else, and Wenming fires back that this is entirely her fault for poisoning him in the first place. So yes, this is Lu Ruyan, the woman who has been controlling Wenming with poison this entire time. Wenming decides to table the argument and immediately starts looking for a private room to do the exchange. Lu Ruyan is left sitting on the floor wondering what exactly just happened. He shoves the Imperial Defense layout into her hands and begs for the antidote, saying he is literally about to explode. Lu Ruyan is genuinely surprised he completed the map this quickly. The deal they made is finally reaching its conclusion. Lu Ruyan accepts the scroll and tells him to take the antidote, then give her the full rundown on everything happening inside the palace. And the way she smiles while holding both the poison cure and classified Imperial intel is genuinely breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. She tosses him the antidote and our boy catches it with pure joy on his face, already celebrating that he can finally stop being at this woman's mercy. Freedom is literally in his hands, and then he fumbles it. The antidote pill slips right out of his fingers and bounces away from him. You cannot write comedy this devastating. His one lifeline is rolling across the floor. The absolute horror on his face, as he watches his antidote escape, is the kind of despair that belongs in a tragedy, not a comedy. This man's luck is genuinely cursed. And the pill has rolled right toward the doorway where Batar, the barbarian envoy, is standing. He notices something at his feet, and the timing of this could not possibly be worse. Batar and Aobu slide the door open, asking if this is the prettiest girl in Kyonghwa House, and Wenming is pressed against the wall behind the door, hiding from the barbarian envoys while his antidote sits right at their feet. Every single disaster in this episode just collided into one room, and that is where we leave off. Batar is already eyeing Lu Ruyan like she is a prize at a festival, and the energy in this room just dropped to absolutely unacceptable levels. But Lu Ruyan, being the professional she is, immediately switches into hostess mode, welcoming these gentlemen like they did not just barge into her private room uninvited. The old madam pops in to remind Lu Ruyan that these are big spenders and she better treat them right. Capitalism waits for no one, not even when barbarians are kicking down your door. And Lu Ruyan is internally screaming, because of all the times for this money-hungry grandma to dump clients on her, she chose the exact moment when classified imperial documents are sitting on the floor. So she does the only thing she can and boots the defense map across the floor before anyone can see it. She kicked the antidote too. Wenming is watching the only cure for his actively lethal poison go flying, and the devastation on this man's face is genuinely hard to look at. Lu Ruyan immediately pivots to damage control, inviting the barbarians in for drinks like this is just a normal Tuesday. Meanwhile, Wenming needs to disappear before he becomes an international incident. And then a thump comes from under the bed, because Wenming apparently forgot that stealth mode requires you to actually be quiet. Batar asks what that noise was, and Lu Ruyan, without missing a single beat, says it was probably just a rat. Wenming is the rat. He is the rat under the bed. Our boy is pressed flat against the floor under this bed, telling himself that if he just stays curled up tight enough, no one will find him. The survival instincts of a man who has been in way too many bad situations. Lu Ruyan whispers down to him that if he moves a single muscle and these barbarians find him, he is dead. Wenming fires back that if she had not kicked his antidote across the room, he would not be in this predicament. And honestly, he has a very valid point here. Lu Ruyan is wondering why Catastrophe follows this guy like a shadow, but she cannot afford to lose him because he is her only source of intel inside the palace. The definition of a necessary liability. Meanwhile, the other courtesans are doing their jobs, offering dances and massages to keep the barbarians distracted. Every second they stay occupied is a second Wenming stays alive, but while everyone is focused on the barbarian situation, someone else has been lurking outside the room this entire time. And this person just confirmed that the Wen clan's secret cultivation technique and matching pills are hidden right here in Kyonghwa House. Wenming spots the scroll and the antidote pill sitting just out of reach on the floor and starts inching his hand out from under the bed. This man is doing a stealth mission in real time. He is so close he can practically taste freedom. Just a few more inches and that antidote is his. And then Batar erupts because something just set this man off. And when a guy built like a siege engine starts yelling, everyone in the room freezes. Both Lu Ruyan and Wenming are caught completely off guard. Whatever just happened, the vibe in this room went from tense to genuinely dangerous in half a second. Aobu is furious, accusing them of treating the northern envoys like fools. Lu Ruyan plays innocent, but internally she is panicking because she thinks they discovered Wenming after all. Aobu is pointing at the floor and demanding to know why they sent a spy to eavesdrop on noble guests from the north. So this is not about Wen Ming at all, this is about the mysterious lurker from earlier. And Liu Ruyan is genuinely confused this time because she has no idea what spy they are talking about. She has her own problems right now, thank you very much. And there he is. The masked intruder who was eavesdropping outside has been dragged into the open, and the barbarians are calling him a typical Wu Dynasty coward, sneaky and shameless. But this so-called coward is not going down quietly. He launches an energy attack that tells you immediately this is not some random thief. This guy has serious martial arts power, and someone gets sent flying through the entire wall of Kyonghwa House. The property damage alone is going to make the old madam pass out. The intruder reveals his plan. Since he has been found out, he is just going to take what he came for by brute force. And then he drops a wild line about how a few people at a pleasure house will not stop him from achieving limb regrowth. Wait, limb regrowth? What exactly is this man trying to regenerate, and why does he need the Wen clan technique to do it? Batar and Aobu quickly assess him as an 8th rank martial artist and start worrying he might be an elite Wu Dynasty assassin sent to take them out. The paranoia is running high on both sides. The barbarian duo squares up and prepares for a full-on engagement. 2 northern warriors versus 1 masked cultivator in the middle of a pleasure house. Peak fiction is happening right now. The intruder uses the chaos to swoop down and snatch both the scroll and the antidote pill off the floor. That is Wen Ming's defense map and his poison cure, both now in enemy hands. The intruder grips the scroll with pure satisfaction in his eyes, celebrating that he finally has what he has been searching for. This man just robbed everyone in the room simultaneously. But Batar is not about to let some thief waltz out of here after disrespecting the North's strongest warrior. He catches the intruder before he can flee, and this fight just escalated hard. The intruder's eyes go full villain mode, glowing with dark energy as he channels everything he has into one devastating strike. This man chose violence, and he is fully committed. These two are throwing down with zero restraint, trading blows that are absolutely demolishing the room around them. Kyonghwa House was not built for this kind of content. Meanwhile, Wen Ming is crouched in a corner having a full existential crisis. Everyone in this room is fighting over his antidote, and he is just sitting here wondering what kind of multi-car pileup his life has become. The intruder starts charging up a seriously terrifying technique. Dark energy spiraling around his palm like he is about to delete someone from existence. And he slams that energy palm right into Batar's chest while the scroll goes flying between them. The impact alone would put a normal person in the ground permanently. The intruder snatches the scroll and antidote out of the air with practiced precision. This man is pulling off a heist in the middle of an active war zone. He makes his break for the exit with both items in hand, but someone is right on his tail. This escape is far from guaranteed. The intruder unloads a frost-infused attack directly into Aobu's face, calling him an old man like this is personal. These barbarians are catching hands from every direction. He follows up with a spinning kick that sends Aobu stumbling, creating just enough space to keep his escape route open. Aobu is absolutely furious that this lone intruder is giving both of them this much trouble. Northern pride is taking a beating today. But in all this chaos, the antidote pill bounces right back toward Wen Ming under the bed. Our boy catches it with the reflexes of a man whose literal life depends on it, and honestly the luck stat just went from 0 to 100. Batar catches up to the intruder and starts questioning him about this limb regrowth obsession. For a guy who clearly has both arms and legs, he sure fights like someone with a personal grudge against disability. The intruder goes full tragic villain mode, declaring that none of them could possibly understand the depth of his suffering. The backstory is clearly unhinged and I need to know more immediately. And then he drops the heaven-earth boundless technique, which is exactly as apocalyptic as it sounds. A massive dome of energy explodes outward and catches everyone in the blast radius, barbarians and courtesans alike. Liu Ruyan takes a direct hit from the shockwave, and she is absolutely not okay. This is collateral damage at its worst, and she did not sign up for any of this. She is coughing blood from the impact. Whatever that technique was, it left her with serious internal injuries, and the pain on her face is making me genuinely worried about her condition. Even the intruder himself admits that technique was too much for his own body to handle. He needs to get out of here before the recoil catches up with him. Wen Ming watches helplessly from under the bed as the intruder grabs the defense map right in front of him. He got his antidote back, but the classified Imperial scroll is being stolen in real time. Batar and Aobu are bruised, bloodied, and absolutely livid. The North's proudest warriors just got styled on by a lone masked cultivator in a pleasure house. This is not going into the official report. The intruder launches himself out of the building with the scroll in hand, laughing that nobody can stop him now. The confidence of a man who just pulled off the robbery of the century. But Batar is not the type to let someone walk away after embarrassing him. He draws his sword and declares that this thief is not getting away that easily. Liu Ruyan is stunned, wondering where Batar even pulled that sword from. These northerners apparently keep weapons on their person at all times, even during visits to a pleasure house. The intruder fires off a crescent moon slash using northern Seablade arts while Batar charges in with his own weapon. The fact that this masked man knows northern fighting techniques raises some serious questions about his identity. Batar tells Aobu that the intruder is badly wounded and his speed should be enough to chase him down. Aobu confirms he is on it, but before they can give chase, a furious voice cuts through the air. And that voice belongs to someone who carries actual imperial authority. The Empress herself has arrived at Gyeonggwa House with a full escort of armed guards. Wu Xin steps through looking like she just interrupted an entire circus, and honestly that assessment is accurate. Meanwhile, Lu Ruyan is sitting alone in the wreckage, beaten and robbed of the defense map she just traded for, nursing internal injuries. Today has been objectively the worst day of this woman's career, and before she can even catch her breath, someone grabs her. Because apparently the hits just keep coming for Lu Ruyan today. It is Wen Ming, and he does not look right at all. His eyes have gone completely dark, the poison is fully taking over, and Lu Ruyan recognizes immediately that this situation just went from bad to critical. Outside, Beitar finally gets a good look at who just showed up and realizes he is standing face to face with Empress Wu Xin herself. The same woman his people have been scheming against. Beitar tells Aobu to stay alert because the assassin might have been sent by her. Aobu, being the meathead that he is, says worst case they just fight the Empress head-on. Bold strategy for a man with blood still dripping down his face. And then the Empress walks forward, and the character designers continue their campaign against viewer productivity. Wu Xin in full imperial regalia with that silhouette is the kind of thing that makes you forget she could end your entire bloodline with a flick of her wrist. Beitar's eyes go wide because something about the Empress's presence just hit him on a primal level. The difference between hearing about a 9th rank warrior and standing in front of one is apparently enormous. Aobu is sweating because at some point the Empress moved behind both of them without either one noticing. The speed gap between them is not a gap, it is an abyss. Wu Xin issues her command to the Imperial Guards. Surround the entire Gyeonggwa house and do not let even a fly escape. The net has been cast, and everyone inside it just became a suspect. The guards snap to attention immediately, and suddenly Beitar and Aobu find themselves completely boxed in by Imperial soldiers. The power dynamic just flipped in about 3 seconds flat. Cici whispers to the Empress that if Wen Ming is not actually inside, the civil officials are going to make this public spectacle a political nightmare. But Wu Xin is not worried about bureaucrats. What she wants is evidence that Wen Ming has been dealing with the northern barbarians. Beitar storms up to the Empress and demands an explanation. This man's survival instincts are clearly non-functional because you do not yell at a 9th rank warrior who just casually teleported behind you. He is convinced the Empress came to arrest them, and he is not taking it quietly. The audacity of this man is almost admirable if it were not so incredibly stupid. The Empress glances at him like she is mildly surprised a wild animal wandered into her path. She casually asks why there is still a savage hanging around, and the disrespect is so effortless it is almost art. Cici fills her in that these are the barbarian envoys who have been staying in the capital, and the Empress plays it perfectly by acting like she had no idea they existed. The political gamesmanship on display here is genuinely masterful. Without even looking at them, the Empress orders her men to escort the barbarians back to the palace to rest. She just treated the North's most dangerous warriors like stray dogs who wandered into her yard. Beitar is absolutely seething, but behind the rage, something far more dangerous is forming. He mutters that since they have crossed paths with the Empress, they might as well accelerate the plan. Whatever that plan is, it does not sound like diplomacy. Aobu grabs Beitar by the collar before he can do something monumentally stupid. Sometimes the bald friend is the only thing standing between you and a declaration of war. Aobu reminds him that the Empress is a 9th rank warrior, which puts her in a completely different tier of existence. Acting reckless before their plan is ready would get them both killed. For once, Beitar actually listens. The barbarians reluctantly leave with the Imperial escort, and the tension they leave behind is thick enough to cut with a sword. Cici watches them go in silence, and the look on her face says she already knows that sending them away was the safe play, not the final solution. Cici warns the Empress that the barbarians just attacked someone in broad daylight and might be colluding with Wen Ming. The Empress coolly responds that she already sensed their killing intent. Cici asks why she did not just take them down right then if she knew they were dangerous, and the Empress gives a one-word setup that you know is about to be absolutely devastating. She says an ant's killing intent means nothing to a dragon, and just to make sure the audience understands, the art team puts an entire purple dragon aura behind her. This woman is operating on a level that makes everyone else look like they are playing a different game, and Cici is looking at her with literal stars in her eyes, completely mesmerized. Honestly, same. When the Empress goes full Apex Predator mode, everyone in the vicinity becomes a fan whether they want to or not. The Empress refocuses the mission. They are here for Wen Ming, not the barbarians. Let the palace guards keep an eye on those two while they handle the real objective. Cici charges into Gyeonggwa House and starts barking orders. Everyone out, imperial business, no questions. The courtesans scatter like they have seen this kind of raid before. She orders a full sweep of every room, declaring that not a single corner goes unchecked. Cici is taking this assignment very seriously, and the determination on her face says Wen Ming better not be here. The Empress does not bother with hallways. She launches herself through the building's upper levels with the kind of speed that makes walls feel optional. When you are 9th rank, doors are a suggestion. And then we get this close-up of the Empress's face, and there is something unexpectedly vulnerable in those eyes. She whispers to herself that Wen Ming better not let her down. Whatever she is feeling toward him, it is far more complicated than just hunting a suspect. Meanwhile, Wen Ming is barely conscious and completely disoriented. His body is doing something strange, and he has no idea what is happening to him. He wakes up in a bed he does not remember getting into, shirtless, covered in sweat, and the last thing he remembers is the poison hitting him like a freight train. The question of how he got here and who undressed him is now extremely pressing. Then it hits him. Wait, the poison was kicking in, he blacked out, and now his clothes are gone. The implications of this timeline are making his brain short-circuit in real time. He yanks the blanket up to check the situation downstairs, and the raw panic on his face suggests the worst-case scenario is actively being considered. And then the relief washes over him as he confirms that everything is still where it should be. Our boy lives to fight another day with all his equipment intact. But then he notices something off. There is a strange sensation that was not there before, like something in his body fundamentally changed while he was unconscious. And his hand finds something under the blanket that definitely should not be there. What exactly he is grabbing is left to the imagination, and that is where this episode abandons us. See you next time. So remember how Wen Ming blacked out from the poison and woke up with his clothes missing? Well, the mystery of what happened while he was unconscious has officially been solved, and the answer is worse than anyone imagined. Wen Ming is sitting there shirtless, completely speechless, trying to process the absolute catastrophe he has apparently participated in, and Lu Ruyan is glaring at him from under that blanket with the exact energy of someone who has both been wronged and is about to make it everyone else's problem. She accuses him of doing the deed and pretending nothing happened, and our boy is screaming that literally nothing about this situation is okay. And then she drops the bombshell. She is the saintess of the Heavenly Lotus sect, and she just lost her purity to a man pretending to be a eunuch. The dramatic irony here is honestly weapons grade. When Ming fires back that she is way stronger than him, so even drugged there is no way he could have overpowered her. She counters that she was injured and had no strength to fight back. This blame game is going in circles. Then her tone shifts completely. She declares that no one in the sect can ever find out about this, and to ensure that, the fake eunuch has to die. She is looking at Wen Ming the way a cat looks at a mouse it is about to eat. And Wen Ming's face says he just heard her internal death threat loud and clear, even though she never said it out loud. She swings at him with everything she has, and this woman is still a cultivator even when injured, so that is not a love tap. He dodges and casually informs her that he is pretty sure he just heard her thinking about killing him. The look on her face when she realizes he might be reading her mind is absolutely priceless. She panics internally, wondering if he can actually hear her thoughts, and then starts connecting it to the Saintess legends. Wen Ming, from the bottom of the frame, confirms he heard that thought too. This man is built different. He asks her to explain these so-called legends, and she is thinking that he has stumbled into the jackpot of a lifetime, which he also hears, naturally. Here is the lore drop. The Saintess of Heavenly Lotus cultivates a dual practice technique where once she is intimate with a man, their power becomes shared and their hearts become connected. Basically, they are permanently linked now. Wen Ming immediately puts it together. That is why he suddenly feels so much stronger. He literally absorbed her cultivation power. Our boy went from poisoned and dying to getting a massive stat boost through the most unconventional method possible.
And now he is smirking, because he is already scheming. With this kind of strength in hand, the possibilities are about to get very interesting.
He grabs his clothes and starts getting ready to bounce, and Lu Ruyan is sitting there in shock because this man is just gonna leave like nothing happened. He declares that with this strength nothing in the capital can stop him, and he is running off to join his father's rebellion right now. Lu Ruyan screams at him to hold it right there. This man really thought he could just speedrun an escape route. She launches herself out of bed yelling that he does not get to sleep with her and just walk away. The fury of a scorned saintess is genuinely terrifying, and honestly she has a point. Their eyes lock, and you can feel the tension between these two reaching a critical mass. She is not letting this go, and he is starting to realize running might not be an option. Then his foot suddenly explodes with pain and he collapses. She explains that their bodies are linked now, so his gains are her gains, and his pain is absolutely her pain too. She just weaponized the connection in real time, and then she hits him with the real deal. Since her strength is now his strength, he is responsible for completing her infiltration mission within the Wu dynasty. This woman just turned a one-night disaster into a permanent employment contract. Our boy hits her with the confident smirk and asks what happens if he just says no. Bold strategy from a man whose body is literally chained to hers through mystical intimacy. And that is when she reaches for a dagger, which immediately changes the entire mood of this negotiation. She tells him that if he refuses, she will make sure they die together. Wen Ming's confident smirk has evaporated faster than water in a desert. This woman is not bluffing. She explains that as the saintess, if she has lost her purity and still fails her sex mission, the only fate waiting for her is death anyway, so she has literally nothing to lose. Wen Ming immediately switches to survival mode, calling her granny and begging her to calm down because he is way too young to die. The negotiation leverage has completely shifted to her side. He tries a different angle. If he finds his father outside the border, the Heavenly Lotus sect's goal of toppling the Wu dynasty gets accomplished anyway. So making him spy in the palace is a waste of his talent. She shuts him down flat. No, he must keep spying in the palace. Wen Ming screams back asking why, and honestly the frustration is understandable because his argument was actually pretty solid. and then she drops the real motivation. The Heavenly Lotus sect does not want to just replace one tyrant with another. What they want is genuine equality. Wenming's chibi self at the bottom is losing his mind over the fact that she is preaching political philosophy right now. But before this debate can go any further, they both hear the worst possible words at the worst possible time. The Great Martial Guards are at the door demanding it be opened. The guards identify this as the last room to search, the same one the northern envoys were using earlier, and Cece is right there directing the operation. Cece puts it together instantly. No one is answering after all that noise, which means Wenming is definitely in there. This girl's detective instincts are razor sharp. She orders the guards to surround the room from top to bottom and block every possible exit. The entire Imperial search party has converged on exactly where Wenming is hiding. The sound of boots hitting the floor fills the hallway as guards move into position. Every second that passes makes escape more impossible. Inside the building, guards are forming a wall of red uniforms and sharp weapons. The net is closing fast. And outside, even more guards are positioned with spears pointed and ready. Cece said not even a fly gets out, and she meant it. Meanwhile, a random mouse is sitting by a hole in the wall looking just as confused as everyone else about the situation unfolding around it. Cece does not bother with knocking. She straight up demolishes the door with a single kick, because subtlety was never in this girl's vocabulary. The mouse from earlier is now sitting in the debris of the destroyed door, staring into the void and questioning every life choice that led it to this building. Cece stands there holding her weapon like a final boss, declaring that Wenming has nowhere left to run. She is way too hyped about cornering this man, and the energy she is giving off is genuinely menacing. She turns to the Empress to confirm this is the last room, and the Empress gives her a simple yes. Two of the most powerful women in the dynasty are standing right outside Wenming's hiding spot. Cece kicks in the actual door this time, announcing it as an official Great Martial Guard inspection. She is having way too much fun with this authority. Behind a curtain, a silhouette apologizes to the Empress for being indecently dressed. Someone is in there and they are buying time. The Empress is not interested in excuses. She orders the room searched thoroughly, and Cece acknowledges immediately. Whatever is behind that curtain is about to get very much discovered. The Empress directly asks if anyone has seen Wenming, and the voice behind the curtain claims she has not seen him at all. A likely story from the woman who was literally in bed with him 5 minutes ago. Cece is staring at that curtain with narrowed eyes and the gears in her head are turning. Something about this situation is not adding up for her. Cece goes straight for the curtain and starts pulling it aside. The Empress looks startled because even she was not expecting Cece to be this aggressive about the search. Cece zeroes in on the bed and declares it looks suspicious. She is checking it personally, and the intensity in that one-eye close-up says she will tear this room apart if she has to. But when they look at the bed, all they find are some very conspicuous undergarments just sitting there on display. The energy in this room just shifted dramatically. Liu Ruyan, without missing a beat, offers to gift Cece a few pieces if she is interested. Cece recoils and asks who would want her underwear. The deflection game from the Saintess is genuinely elite level. Cece is now holding up one of the outfits and turning red, because these clothes are absolutely not appropriate for any official inspection. The Manhwa is feeding us well with this reaction, but Cece recovers fast. Since he is not under the bed, she starts reasoning about Wenming's habits to figure out where else he could be hiding. Liu Ruyan suddenly declares he must be hiding on top of the bed and rips the bedding up, which sends Cece tumbling. Wait, is Liu Ruyan actually helping Wenming, or is she trying to expose him? Cece dives under the bed to check, and her face freezes with shock at what she finds, or rather what she does not find. There is absolutely no one there. The bed is empty, the floor is empty, and Cece's confidence is rapidly evaporating. Because Wenming is clinging to the ceiling like some kind of human gecko. Based on what he knows about Cece's search pattern, hiding up top was his only option. Liu Ruyan is keeping the search party distracted below. He is thanking whatever gods exist that he absorbed Liu Ruyan's strength, because without it there is no way he could hold himself to the ceiling like this. The power-up from earlier is literally saving his life right now. The search party is tearing the room apart looking for a secret passage that does not exist, while Wenming is literally hanging directly above their heads. The dramatic irony is killing me. Liu Ruyan is sitting there looking perfectly unbothered while Cece tears through her belongings. She tells Cece to stop tossing her stuff around, and the casual confidence of this woman while actively hiding a fugitive is Oscar-worthy. Then Cece bumps into something and suddenly the whole situation is about to unravel. The bed starts shaking because Wenming's grip is failing. He is still hiding somewhere on or near the bed structure, and the vibrations are about to give him away completely. His fingers are barely holding on, the muscles in his hand trembling from the effort. One slip and the entire cover story collapses. Both Cece and Liu Ruyan hear the noise and turn toward it. Cece asks what that sound was, and Liu Ruyan's eyes go wide because she knows exactly what it is. Wen Ming is panicking because they are about to find him, but Lu Ruyan whispers that she will cover for him and tells him to find a chance to use the butterfly step technique to escape. She is officially on his team now. Lu Ruyan jumps in and suggests maybe he is hiding on top of the bed, then immediately pretends she has been sitting there and wrinkled the sheets. The improvisation here is both desperate and brilliant. She throws the blanket over where Wen Ming is hiding on the bed, trying to conceal him under the covers before anyone gets a clear look. She clutches the blanket against herself and claims it is her favorite blanket, refusing to let anyone touch it. The dedication to this bit is honestly admirable when you know there is an entire human man wrapped inside it. Wen Ming has somehow relocated under the bed, and Lu Ruyan's foot is right next to his face as she warns him not to try anything stupid. The trust level between these two is absolutely non-existent. Sissy is getting increasingly frustrated because she cannot find anyone anywhere. She insists her genius deduction cannot possibly be wrong, which is the kind of confidence that usually precedes being very, very wrong. She decides the nuclear option is the only option. She is going to smash the entire bed to pieces, and Lu Ruyan is looking at her like she cannot believe this is actually happening. Both Lu Ruyan and Wen Ming share a split second of pure terror, because if that weapon comes down, the hiding spot and possibly Wen Ming himself are going to be shattered. But then a calm voice cuts through the chaos. The Empress tells Cece that is enough, and Cece freezes mid-swing, because when the Empress speaks, you stop what you are doing immediately. The Empress reminds Cece that her father taught her never to damage a citizen's property out of personal emotion. And just like that, the most powerful woman in the dynasty demonstrates why she rules. Composure over chaos, always. She declares they have made enough of a scene today and orders Cece to settle the damages with the shop owner before leaving. The Empress is gorgeous even when she is calling off a raid, and honestly, that composure is its own kind of devastating. She orders the squad to lead out, and Lu Ruyan is sitting there in silence, playing innocent perfectly while the entire Imperial search team files past her. This woman's poker face deserves its own award. Wen Ming finally exhales and thinks to himself that he is safe. That was genuinely the closest call of his entire life, and he owes his survival to a woman who was trying to kill him 20 minutes ago. But the Empress pauses as she turns to leave, silent and contemplative. Something tells me she is not as convinced as Cece thinks she is. This woman does not miss details. The scene shifts to that night at the secret residence of Lord Hai. And whenever a manhwa shows you a secret residence under moonlight, you know something shady is about to go down. Inside, two figures are huddled together in a dimly lit workshop filled with jars and supplies. The whole setup has the energy of a back alley deal that you are definitely not supposed to be witnessing, and Lord Hai is holding a scroll with pure triumph in his eyes, declaring that he has finally obtained the Wen clan's secret technique. So while everyone was busy searching for Wen Ming at the pleasure house, the real threat was moving in the shadows, and that is where this episode leaves us.